Good morning and welcome to the last day of the session, 83rd session of the Committee on Urban Development, Housing and Land Management. Before starting, I would like to remind you that you have the draft report on the table for the 5th October, for the days, previous days, excluding the today report. And please, if you have comments, give it as yesterday to Mia. Well, she will be here. She will be here. She will be here. Now we open the agenda item 16, Land Administration and Management. And the documents, relevant documents supporting these agenda items are found at ECE/HBP/2019/7, 2021/8/9, 13, and ECE/HBP/2022/5 and /inf.10. The Working Party on Land Administration will update on the implementation of its work program, and the discussion will also include some reflections on the below questions: spatial data infrastructure, spatial planning, urban development, and cadastral land rights are three fundamental pillars of our society. How do you foresee their interplay in the future? And can something be improved in this regard to better meet our global and local challenges and achievement of the SDGs? Second, how are the three pillars related to and contributing to the development of smart cities? And do we have competence on and capacities needed? And how can we better attract the young generation to the sector? I announced that sadly Mr. Frederick Zetterquist, chair of the Working Party on Land Administration, could not attend because he fell ill. So I invite now, Hannah will be briefing instead, and then we have Mr. Hartmut Müller, senior professor of FH Mainz University of Applied Sciences, to present the study on accelerated digitalization and the future role of land administration authorities in the UNECE region and beyond, and reflect on the above questions. And Ms. Nuria Raga Sastre, member of REM and Land Registrar, Colegio de Registradores de la Propiedad Mercantiles y de Bienes Muebles de España, to share REM's views on the study and reflects on its implementation. So first I give the floor to Hannah to report on the activities of Working Party on Land Administration.
Everyone, I just want to re-emphasize our chair. He's so sorry. He just called like a night before saying that he got sick. I hope it's not COVID, but he sounded really terrible over the phone. So I'm going to quickly present. He wanted to speak about more issues, but I'm going to just stick to the minimum, which is just present the work of the Working Party on land administration. So his name is still on the slide, so it's not me, it's Frederick, our chair. So I'm going to just take you through the slides. Of course, he just wants to hear in this aspect, this is just a slide that he keeps showing every time on the left hand to show that it is basically part of the Committee on Urban Development, Housing and Land Management, that the idea that they look into land administration, and that, of course, there's a real estate market advisory group, and both are supposed to feed into the overall mandate of the committee. And this he keeps showing because it's not clear when he goes and represents the Working Party. So he does that every time, and he keeps insisting that he has to explain it to every delegate. So I'm just doing what he asked, that this be there. So he always, the idea is this working party draws on collaboration with lots of partners. So there is a group, the activities range from simple webinars, training, then there is like policy documents, I'll show you, I'll go through one of them, and then there is also publications, and the policy briefs like guidelines, and of course there is the serious publications, which we always do in collaboration. The bottom line is that they collaborate all the time, nothing only by the members themselves. Okay, these are the bureau members. Of course, he's the chair. And we have, they're listed on the screen. We have Victoria Abbott from the United Kingdom, Elena Bush from Norway, and all the names. They couldn't make it here today. The idea is that the Working Party looks into land administration from the holistic perspective. So you have the outer is, the whole idea is to keep things within the boundaries. So as they look into land administration, they see to what extent is it also within the context of making sure respecting the environment, environmental preservation, and this framework of the boundaries that one has to see that land administration, be it the tenure and so on, whenever you try to collect data on it, I'll show you some examples. It's with an eye of making sure that you also address the issues related to environment in addition to the legal aspects, the rights, the tenure, and so on. So these are the circles. So it's all with the idea of informing land governance in the bigger perspective, be it from the right perspective, the right to ownership, the right, and then also respecting the environment and keeping things within our planetary boundaries. So, okay. So it's again another way of showing the different components that how they relate. Of course, you could see that there's a land tenure, land value, land use, land development. Everything has to be within the context of catalyzing using IT in order to make sure that you collect data on each and every aspect with the idea of feeding into sustainable development. So the whole premise is that land administration should not be looked into just as a system for land administration, but also to make it as a tool for policymakers. And more will be explained in the following slides. I think I have to click, yes, okay. So this is an example from Sweden. So here he is looking into the land administration system and the type of data that the land administration collects. So here you have the Maritime Authority, building address, the municipal roads, and there is lots of data that can be collected from those aspects and through them as well. The heritage, then the national reserves, country administration, these are the sources. So all of these are kind of, it's crowded. See, if I keep on clicking, you see? It's amazing, oh, sorry. All of these are are involved in the business of collecting data on land administration. You see, it's like crowded. And they all use IT, there's the interconnection, the interoperability between the systems, and all this makes it for a very good source for policymakers. So expanded role of land administration authorities, again, the point is that they should look to themselves not only as keepers of who has who has square kilometers on this and that. It's just to be very policy oriented. So smart cities, to what extent do cities can be using smart solutions that we were discussing yesterday? What data can we collect to enable that from the land administration perspective? Climate change, you see all of them. And of course, the idea of that 3D, the pictures should allow to 360 degrees so that when you have the pictures on the Google, and basically, this means that land administration should have increased interaction with other agencies, complex decision-making processes. The agency itself becomes very complex, reflecting the holistic perspective. Then, of course, increased business intelligence, IT. Okay, now here I just want to, yes, this one is to be looked into a preface for a study which is land administration scenarios. So if you look at all of these aspects, urbanization, Agenda 2030, the technological advances, all of these are further drivers for the land administration that has to revolutionize itself. So big data, all of these issues are drivers that affect the land administration. All of these are captured in this study, which is called the Scenario Study on Future Land Administration. And the idea is to see what and how the land administration agencies need to reinvent themselves. And the report is on the website. I'm going to take you here to these scenarios, but before that, I'm going to step back and say that this was based on a survey. I forgot how many experts from land administration from different countries were asked to see what are the major issues that affect their business and their decision on what type of services they provide. And of course, there was economic aspects, climate change, aging, IT, a list. It's all in the publication, and in the previous slide, like there are 13 of them, but they can be grouped into 3 aspects: environment, social, and economy. And okay, what do they think themselves? There are these scenarios. You have as a service, which is like now, you know, the basic minimum here, get your paper, bye-bye. Or something which is more a platform where you have connectivity, distributed, multiple actors, open data, and then you have the, the conventional is the one which is like as is with nothing. So you do the conventional, and as a service, you're more geared towards being policy-oriented. So distributed, you are connected with lots of actors. As a platform, you are interconnected using the IT data. So the idea is how to look into this, and it's not only the land administration should also try to see, to collaborate more with the private sector as well, and the issues of data, data sharing, data exchange. So you see here, you cannot only be in one of these boxes, and as you move, you have to be multifaceted. But the idea is just not to be, to move away from just being a simple land administration. Of course, these are the 24 guiding principles. They're also there in the scenario study. So land administration is no longer just a service or a bureaucracy. It is a policy-oriented tool now. It has to be a source for policy making. So one of them is that it's uniform throughout the country. It should be robust and capable of reflecting dynamic nature of information stored in it over time, which means that it has to collect different sources of information, make it coherent, intelligent, combine, as I showed from the other sources, how to do that. So, and on, it's a long list. So now we move on to what are the activities that were done in 2021 and 2022, because he's looking into the activities from the previous session. So they had the impact of COVID pandemic on land administration, and one of the major aspects, it was the increased use of digitalization, and this is one thing which is captured in the study that will be presented by our expert. We also had these webinars. You could see that they're all about land administration. You see from the titles, the recordings and presentations are always online, and this is another way of, we have the recent publications, the scenario study, which I've already spoken about, fraud, public-private partnership in land administration, COVID recovery plan, sustainable development and security, the appendix, and then we have this joint publication, accelerated digitalization. Upcoming, okay, we have Montenegro. There is this country profile that will be discussed just at another agenda item, and when we do this, we rely on experts from WEPLA and experts from REM, who will be joining the the teams of experts to these countries. So there were like initial discussions with Montenegro on what exactly do they want. And these are the issues that they highlighted. Avoid legal procedures. These are the problems that they face: illegal buildings, no capacity for inspection, property tax, which means, like here they're saying that the different citizens are avoiding taxes. So these are the problems. Albania, they haven't had a proper discussion with Albania, though we have been discussing as a secretariat with the Albanian government. Suggested focus areas, again, land administration for building resilience, digitalization, ecosystems for actors, functions. So these are the focus areas for the future. Geostat, again, this is a reoccurring theme about data. Do we need to look more into this aspect? This is the program of work. It's already in the documents for the working party. So one is capacity building, looking into these issues, land administration reviews, which some of it could be as part of the country profiles, studies on selected topics that can be done, and that's it. Thank you. I hope it was clear.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you. It was a very comprehensive reporting, not only
You tell him that, please, because he feels so bad that he didn't come.
Yeah, well, you transmit to him. Because you not only provided information on the activities that Working Party has undertaken between 21 and 22, but also more insightful thoughts on how to better connect the land administration with policies, land policies in general, that support the work of this committee. Working Party on Land Administration is one of our long-lasting subsidiary body, and since here we have had discussions with them how to make their work to support more the program of work of our committee and the development of recommendations which support policy development for housing and urban development. And also the fact that it's interesting that COVID-19 was a big crisis. However, it had also some positive aspects coming out, because digitalization has been extended very much, and is the same in our case, that a process of digitalizing the cadastral office has started since some years, but in particular during the COVID was much more stressed to progress as fast as possible. Now I give the floor to Mr. Hartmut Müller, that will present the study on accelerated digitalization and the future role of land administration authorities in UNECE region and beyond, and reflect on the questions that just were mentioned, how to make a better connection also with our policy, land policy in general, and housing policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Speak. Yes. So, Madam Chair, distinguished delegates, good morning. It's my honor and my pleasure to present the outcomes of this joint study of digital transformation and land administration, sustainable practices from UNECE region and beyond. So here we have some echo. Yes? Do I do something wrong here? Can I improve something? No? No, it's the same. No. We have an echo. Can we remove that echo? Ah. It's better to sit? Yes. Okay, so. Well, I would prefer to stand at the podium, but if that is not possible, no, I will take this one here. Sorry. Yeah, so once again, this is the study here, Digital Transformation and Land Administration. It resulted in 2 publications here, what you can see. First is an e-book, and then you have the investment brief. And here you can see the QR codes. You just can take it, and it will take you directly to both publications here. Digital Transformation and Land Administration, and Funding Digital Transformation in Land Administration. The Knowledge for Investment brief is just, in fact, is kind of extended executive summary of the first one. So, well, why the need for the 2 publications? First is the COVID-19 impact on land administration. You can see here this curve on the right side here in Norway, how COVID-19 affected the existing digital platforms. There is kind of digital acceleration, or at least digital development, you can say. New lessons have been learned, new challenges have arrived, and it's hard to obtain funding. Well, and here you see the statement down, digital disruption is the new normal for land administration organizations. Land administration systems must be equipped to deal with disruption, whether it stems from internal or external sources. And so why is all that relevant? I mean, we can connect it to the SDGs in a quite not too direct way. I have often to do with young people, and it's hard to get them the message that it is important. This topic is not sexy at all, land administration for them. But imagine here you have this building, and assuming it's on private land, and so it makes a difference if you're the owner of the parcel where this building stands or not. And it makes a difference if women have the right to own land. It may be, it's given for us, yeah, it's a given for us in the Western countries, but by far not everywhere. And so it is a clear contribution to gender equality if you give women access to land or not. So this is a very, I think it's a practical point, and this is a contribution to poverty, and you empower women when they have the right to own land. So, well, here back to the 2 publications. We have there was a series of joint webinars. Hannah already mentioned some of them in her speech. And we started to collaborate with FAO, because FAO, of course, its aim is to increase food security, and the WPLA, I just learned what they are about, and it's very close to what FIG is doing. No, this was not correct. Yeah, sometimes we do. Yeah, okay, and we have a quite close cooperation, and also with the Joint Research Center of the European Union. And the study was funded by the FAO Investment Center, and we had a drafting team from FIG. We had several in-depth review rounds. The drafting team received for the guide, it received close to 500 comments from many experts from all around the world and from the different institutions. And we had another round with peer review, and the results were split into these 2 documents. So in fact, this knowledge for investment briefs covers around 20 pages or so. You can see it from there to get an overview. It's a good start, and if you want to read it more in detail, you can use the guide, and the audience is decision makers, of course, leaders and practitioners alike. So, yeah, here we have the Sustainable Development Goals. I won't go into that. We talked about gender equality and, of course, no poverty in case women are separated and they own land. It makes a difference, or if they do not. So, yes, and what is now one of the goals? We have from the UN Global Geospatial Information Management Committee, they developed the Global Fundamental Geospatial Data Themes. You addressed it in your speech quite shortly. I will elaborate a bit more on that. And these are the 14 themes. And when you go into that, yes, of course, location matters, place matters. When you're talking about land and land management, land administration, well, you have the theme addresses. When you go here, you enter in Google Maps, you enter the address here, and it says, okay, walk there, then there, and there. That is, you need the addresses, and you need the transport networks here, the second down there, because you need to know where do you have a road to walk. So this is very important. And then buildings, of course, it's important to have information about buildings. And then you have elevation and depth, but functional areas is also very critical, because normally planning is done within administrative units, of course, and so it's important the relation of administrative units to the planning and to the documentation of land and so on. So geographical names, yes, is connected to addresses in a way. Geology and soils, once you want to make development, it's important what is underneath here. If you want to upgrade this building by another 10 floors, God forbid, then you would need to know what is the underground. And land use, land cover is a basis for proper land planning, of course. You need the documentation of land parcels, also imagery. We saw examples in the previous speech, physical infrastructure and population. Where do people live? It's important. Are there many people? What is the movement of people? Transport networks, yes, of course. Railways, streets, waterways. And water at the end. So now, what has land administration to do with these geospatial fundamental data themes? Here you see the matrix. You see the 17 SDGs here, and these are the columns, and the rows are the fundamental geospatial data themes. And you can see, for instance, functional areas. The fourth one is connected to all 17 SDGs. And the same is true for population distribution. And then you can go into the details. And the study addresses all them, merge them into these 13 themes here, and linked the themes to the SDGs. You see here gender equality, poverty reduction. I talked about that earlier, SDGs 1, 5, and 10. And it links it to the chapters of the publication. Well, so what are the benefits of digitalization of land administration? It can reduce the cost and time of essential services. So saying, okay, reducing time, okay, that's true. Reducing the cost is more seen from the consumer's perspective. From the provider's perspective, I'm always a bit hesitant. my personal opinion, if you can reduce costs, but that is not the main goal, I would say. The main goal is to provide good services to the citizens, and not only the citizens, to all stakeholders. So you can remove travel, paper documents, long waiting hours, facilitate the applications for social subsidies, and enable monitoring of vulnerable groups, help to demonstrate progress toward equality. You see the example here from North Macedonia. Here, this is the share of women ownership. Here on the left side in 2013, you had some 16+% of records with women as owners or co-owners. So, and you see the progress here on the right side. 6 years later, this share had raised to 27-something %. I mean, this includes even co-ownership, so there is quite some space left to improve the situation, because could easily, when it covers also co-ownership, it could go way beyond 50%, 60, 70, whatever. So, but still, you see the progress. It went up from by 60-70% as compared to 2013. So now we thought, how can we transfer the lessons globally? And here you see some examples. The drafting team elaborated on all different regions of the world. One is the UNECE region, Serbia's land information. You may have a look into the document, and there you see they improved their business processes. They simplified their business processes dramatically, I would say. You see the slides, you can see the figures there. Vietnam, Rwanda from Africa, Asia, and South America. So just to say, can we transfer the lessons learned here in the UNECE region to the other regions of the world? Well, here we have the key areas of support by the World Bank at the policy, legal, and institutional level to improve the IT systems for cadastre and property registration. Depending on the region where you are, such systems are not yet in place, or they are there but outdated. It happens because these systems have to be maintained. It's a very important point. It does not help so much to build its starting point to build up a system, but you have to maintain it for a long time, and so you need sustained financing to do that. Data quality improvement, the system has to be trusted. If you are in doubt if that what is in the system is valid or not, you have a problem. Building registers, well, all that relates quite to the geospatial fundamental data themes I addressed earlier. Building register, an address register, infrastructure cadastre, sale price register, valuation is one important point. You have the land tenure, you have the land use, and you have the land value and land development. These are the four pillars. We heard about that earlier. And so valuation registers are an important part of land administration. We have the IGIF implementation. I'm going to reflect on that in a minute. And systematic registration and capacity development, which is an issue in many fields. So how can we move towards implementation coming from this high-level list? So UNGGIM developed this IGIF, Integrated Geospatial Information Framework, and you can see it on the right side, in the 9 interlinked strategic pathways. The first is the governance level. Of course, you need to set the proper governance and institutions, and you need the political will to do something, and the legal framework. We will hear about that after when I'm finished here. And you need financial subsidies and sustained financial resources. Then technology, geospatial data, geospatial standards that are available at the international level from ISO, Open Geospatial Consortium, and the International Standardization Organization, and people, partnerships, capacity and education, and communication and engagement. And IGEFS provides tools to implement the goals here. When we go from left to right, you have a diagnostic tool. Where are we? Where is the country? You're at a certain place, and then you have the political framework, the land policy, and IGEF provides tools to align the policy framework to what has to be done to implement the system. And then you come to a geospatial strategy, an action plan, and all that can be supported by the IGEF. We do hope that this will play a big role in the years to come to implement proper strategies here. Well, what do digitally transformed land administration systems look like? Well, you have here the 6 I's. You can read them: intelligent, interoperable, inclusive, interactive, incorporated, invested in. I don't want to go in details of all that. Just interoperability is very crucial. Interoperability at a different level. In terms of semantics, you have to think about what is a building. You have to define it, and you have different definitions of that, and you have to take care that all these systems can interoperate, interoperable. Well, and here this is the path forward. Here you can see the, where are we now? What is to be done in the next years, 3 and 4, and looking ahead. You have the list here, what has to be done. Of course, you have to establish proper committees, you have to develop action plans, and then you have to adapt the plans, and you have to develop a technical implementation plan, and then once you implement it, you can achieve fully digital transformation. Yes. So, learning, advocating, communicating is the goal of the publications here, and the takeaways are: land administration system must move from focusing on conventional key performance indicators to a broader perspective on outcomes and social impacts. And here you see some of the main SDGs, again listed: no poverty, zero hunger, gender equality, sustainable cities and communities, life on land, where proper land administration can contribute. Well, some people here, the drafting team was from FIG here: Rohan Bennett, Claudia Stöcker, Kwabena Asiama. They did a great work, I would say. And, well, how can we cooperate more closely? Just some slides going very quickly to them. We have a number of 10 commissions in FIG, And actually, I'm chair of Commission 3, Spatial Information Management, and the others are Cadastre and Land Management, Spatial Planning and Development, and Valuation and Management of Real Estate Data. So we have quite a lot of overlap where we could work together. These are the members of FIG. We have around 120 members represented in FIG. Which in turn represent around 300,000 individuals, which might be seen not so much as compared to other fields, but in our field it's quite many. Well, we were working on the work on sustainable development goals. Here you have the matrix, the 10 commissions. How do they relate to the SDGs? And yes, we could cooperate here with the WPLA, with these commissions. And coming to persons, Rohan Bennett is the incoming chair of Commission 7. He is the lead author of the study, and Kwabena Siama is also a member of the drafting team. He's going to lead the Commission 8, Spatial Planning and Development, in the next term. So that could be a very good start. And with that, I would like to close. Here we presented the study to the FIG Congress in Warsaw some weeks ago. We had a keynote session, we had a joint session of FIG, FAO, and UNECE, and we reported to the General Assembly of FIG, and now we are here at the 83rd second of the UNECE committee, and we will have a side event at the UN World Geospatial Congress in India next week, and it's already planned to include this topic in the work plan of Commission 7. So for those who might have been not arrived at the beginning, here are again the QR codes that you can scan to get the studies, and with that I would like to close my words. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Müller, for presenting us this report, which is very important for your work, but also for the work of those that are engaged in land administration, but not only. And you made also a good connection. You explained how this work and the work of the land administration administrators is so much connected with the SDGs, and in particular regarding the gender issue, and how contributing to reducing poverty. And with this, I would like to thank you again and give the floor to Ms. Nuria Raga Sastre for that you'll speak about the legal aspects, yeah? Thank you.
Good morning. Okay, fine, thank you. No. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to start by giving my thanks to the Secretariat for inviting REM to be present in this panel, and congratulating WPLA, FIG, and FAO for compiling so many human-centered lessons that can guide future digital acceleration with accurate identification of challenges, risks, and opportunities. Harmon explained them, a bit of them, in terms of time. Among the so many remarkable lessons, due to the time constraint, I'll make comments on the following. Starting by the key terms, other information on tenure rights. It has a significant role in the real estate market. There is only one way to identify a concrete tenure right, which is through the means or institution that have the legal competence to do so. It is the state that regulates that. And the more secure tenure rights are, the easier and faster access to mortgage or rent, and the more dynamic the real estate market is. Also, the more we empower women to access housing. Consequently, this other information on tenure rights is key for real estate market and for public administrations. The market, besides the information about localization or geolocalization, also needs to know who the real owner is, what the encumbrances over the right are, what the permitted use is, the building, its energy efficiency and environmental impact. All these questions are also key for public administration to organize land administration and management. For instance, to impose duties and deliver aids to the real holder of the right. Hence, it is to congratulate the so many references to legal issues the publication contains. We can see just a few of them on the slide. Finally, as the publication concludes, beneath many of the information issues sit more fundamental and unresolved land tenure issues. Mainly, these unresolved issues are related to the lack of secure tenure rights, what is in turn related to the process of transferring property rights and the different registration systems. In the second chapter of the publication, the various disruptions showed are serious. It is amazing how digitalization can help to face them, as this happened with the volcano eruption in La Palma. Property registry with previous digital infrastructure helped to identify the people who should be compensated for the loss of their homes, issuing digital certificates with the identification of the real owner, encumbrances, the legal depiction of the plot and building, including its geolocalization. Property registry also helped the Insurance Public Corporation to identify 800 plots and the tenure rights over them. It is also remarkable that the publication highlights the importance of quality data to manage land. Herman also talked about that. It hits the nail on the head, identifying issues like accuracy, validity, completeness, etc. Because data quality is a means to prevent decision makers from errors. Regarding tenure rights, it is key the sources of data being official and reliable in order to guarantee quality. It is also critical the reference to the ever-important issues of cybersecurity and privacy. Please note that when I put anything in commas, it's the very same sentence is contained in the publication. In real estate market, there is a trade-off between speed and security. We want the transaction to be made already at this very same moment, but we also want it to be secure. So we want to be secure that the right we are acquiring is being protected by the state. This trade-off has been overcome in some countries. And why is it a trade-off? Because to achieve security, you need some or researches or checks. So this trade-off has been overcome in some countries through researches, whether by notaries or lawyers or surveyors, plus, in some cases, title insurance. In other countries, the trade-off has been overcome through institutions, as property registries when they procedure according to the title system. In the digital era, technology aims to overcome the trade-off between speed and security. But further of reaching that state, tech solutions are bringing up new challenges to solve, as it is clearly identified in the publications. And the issues, some of the issues, would be these. First of all, encompassing tech developments with corresponding legal framework modifications. Second, new trade-off. There is a new trade-off between technology and human rights, particularly, but not only, freedom. In fact, it is said in the publication that certain processes may be viewed as too sensitive to be undertaken online, especially relating to legal processes. So, can it be currently assumed that tech does really overcome the trade-off between speed and security in real estate transactions? It is evident that tech means speed, in most cases, at least, or in most circumstances. What is more difficult to assure is that tech always means security. This issue involves different questions, and some of which are the following. For those who might be left behind, be it women or any vulnerable groups, because they have neither the tools nor the knowledge needed, would technology really mean speed and security for them? Another issue, digital identification does not guarantee the signee is the person to whom the signature belongs. But there is more. Capacity for a concrete transaction is not currently assured by tech, and it is difficult to be, because, as stated in the publication, sensitive matters require human intervention. More so, when UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, adopted on the 13th of December 2006, recognizes that persons with disabilities enjoy legal capacity on equal basis with others in all aspects of life, and rule to provide them with appropriate support in exercising their legal capacity. There are more issues arising with technology. Legal check of the clauses of transaction. It is expected to be substituted by standardized documents, but this will have to be balanced with some private autonomy and freedom to conclude and modify transactions. Related to this, it is to know that technology creates difficulties for an informed consent. As it is stated in the publication, it remains a challenge for governments to balance the ethical concerns of prior and informed consent and protection of personal data against the desire for improved, innovative, and more timely service provision. To lighten the timeliness of this issue, let's pay attention to one of the topics discussed just 1 month ago in the European Law Institute. It is the very same issue, difficulties for prior and informed consent, regarding a smart fridge. As the fridge does the shopping we are liable to pay, we are entitled to be previously informed of the criteria the fridge follows to do the shopping. The problem arises when the fridge applies machine learning. The representative of UNECE explained to the audience that machine learning is not the same as human learning. And after a while, no one could tell you the criteria the fridge follows to do the shopping you are liable to pay. This means it was deemed not sufficient to be only informed of the preliminary criteria followed by the fridge, but simultaneously it was recognized as being impossible to be informed of the subsequent criteria the fridge follows once it has applied machine learning. This simple case shows we are far from reaching the balance the publication stands up, but it also shows it also shows how important it is that the publication highlights this issue. And the last issue I will pose on the table today. Behind technology, there is always a program which is controlled by humans who might incur in errors, bias, or fraud. In fact, technology helps to hide sophisticated intrudes. Related to this, and with reference to the well-known technology of blockchain, it is to stress that the publication questions the supposed immutability of blockchain. Still, there is also the risk that the content of the recordings is not in accordance to law if the appropriate check has not been previously done. This would impact on tenure rights, diminishing its security, increasing risks for vulnerable groups to be removed from their homes by the real owner or due to not registered encumbrances. Perfectly aligned with other UN declarations and publications, it is pointed out as a must that vulnerable groups are not left behind. Also, it is to congratulate the authors to bring up the tensions between regulatory frameworks and digital developments. It seems there is not enough cooperation between legal and IT experts. Should they work together from the earlier steps of the development, they could deliver a new product along with a legislation proposal. On the other hand, tech developments flow through a chain of tests and errors. And this process is not suitable for land legislation law, really for any law. Land administration law is not suitable for land administration law and for any law, as any error in the law might impact in social, economic, and other sensitive aspects for real estate market and human rights. The publication also offers very useful scenarios, and Hannah told us about them, with a general prescription, as any scenario must ensure improvement of land administration services, better land-related decision-making, enhanced land tenure security, and other goals. Very interested. I invite you all to read the publication. About training, Herman already talked about that. Because there is a trend to compensate the lack of highly trained staff by tech. And this is an error that may cause failures in the system. Technology and highly trained staff are complementary and both needed for success. That's why it is utmost important that the recommendation contained in the publication about capacity development programs at all levels of land administration organizations. The publication also stresses that land administration systems, the same as the property rights systems, are closely related to local conditions and even local beliefs. It is very helpful to bear this in mind in order to design appropriate conditions for each system to improve, without this being a hindrance to transfer fruitful lessons from one country to another. And let me please make 2 points here, because we were said in the previous presentation that maps agency and cadasters maintain addresses. Maintain addresses? Okay, just to know that it is not the same in every country. For instance, in Spain, due to the address is a personal data protected by law, they've created if not created, because I mean it's very well known for years, for centuries in Spain, the civil register. They call it the civil register, and the addresses of citizens are in this civil register, and they are protected. In fact, I was told yesterday by the representative of Andorra that in that country, people is so afraid anyone knowing about their properties that you don't have open data about tenure rights. This is just to highlight that we shouldn't think that any country is the same as ours. Also, regarding parcels identification, Herman was telling me yesterday in Germany, they don't make any modification in the plot. They don't take a piece of the plot and add it to a different plot of the neighbor without a surveyor measuring it and putting on the earth the separatory means. Okay, for instance, in Spain, this is not like that. You can make a private agreement with your neighbor and you could transfer him a piece of your land. You just need a license from the municipality. But you don't even need to go to a notary, to go into the land registry, or to put any signal on the earth. So when we are designing solutions for countries, we need to keep in mind the particularities of each country. Let's see now how several of the guidelines contained in the publication have been successfully tested. In Spain, the real estate market finds the information needed for transactions in the property registry, which is liable of the accuracy of data. Due to this main role property registry has on real estate market, the state uses the registry to enforce land administration and management regulation and also real estate market regulations, as it could be consumers protection, money laundering prevention, digital signature expenditure, environmental duties, social housing. So this is an example of how Herman was talking before, and Doris, about better connect land administration to all policies. How does the state do this in Spain? By banning registration unless the compliance with all these regulations is proven. This function of enforcement is developed mainly digitally with interoperable technology. Property registry also delivers previous data analytics, huge amount of data to decision makers, market researchers, citizens, companies, and also information to fight against money laundering. This information goes to public administrations. Property registry also applies artificial intelligence to improve the check of the compliance with consumers' law, because we have many court rulings about consumers' law, so checking them in person is almost impossible. And just some details. Information about tenure rights is available digitally since 2001, and fully digital procedure to the state recognize the right through registration is in place since 2006. We had in Spain in 2021 more than 560,000 transactions. And about registration disputes, the number is less than 0.09% over the number of the transaction. In the first semester of 2022, the number of transactions was almost 330,000, and the registration disputes 0.15% over that number of transactions. Finally, BIM platforms, we've been explaining about them in previous presentations, are starting to be implemented by several municipalities, so this process has already started, as it was explained also in one of the latest REM seminars. And just some final remarks. Based on the lessons offered by the publication, some personal remarks to finalize. The reforms of land administration systems should be analyzed not only by its explicit costs, but mainly by the implicit costs, which is the cost that is saving to citizens, companies, and states. New PPP should be explored to ease tech and legislation develop simultaneously or at least more closely. This requires more interdisciplinary knowledge among experts and ongoing discussions. The automation and standardization which is implicit in digitalization should be balanced with private autonomy when applicable, or at least sensitive and human rights-related matters. While empowering citizens to join digitalization progress, to support vulnerable groups, human intervention is key, till they are equipped and instructed on digital tools. And finally, political guidelines should also take into account citizens' preferences to plan new social housing, infrastructure, and services. Otherwise, some initiatives aiming to help citizens to afford a home won't match the expected results because incentives set up conflict with citizens' behaviors. I would like to finish by congratulating the authors for such an in-depth analysis, which will guide the future developments of land administration and management for sure. Thank you very much, and thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you very much, Nubia, about this very thorough reflection on the implication that this study and the future of the land administration can have on different sectors, and in particular, the how to manage this balance between technology, digitalization, and protecting the human rights, not just tenure rights, but in general human rights, because it deals with more general than that. It's privacy, it's fraud that can happen, and we are experiencing this because we are in this process of digitalization, and it's not that easy. And what you mentioned, that digitalization should not leave anyone behind. And this is what we are concerned, because the system that we have established, for example, for application online for housing purposes, can leave behind those that have no access to digital system and no knowledge also to use the digital system. So it needs to be combined also with other means and services also.
If I may, I completely agree. And just as an example, I said that in Spain we have the process fully digitalized, but the citizen can choose if they are taking the documents in paper or if they are following the digital process. So it's not compulsory. That helps to those people because it's not only that they don't have the means. We have also older people who think, if I don't touch my paper, it's like I don't have anything. And it's very hard to explain to them. So what's the matter? If we are able to provide them with this support, or even women, they don't know how to manage, or they cannot afford a Wi-Fi at home. I think if we could somehow support them with human intervention, simultaneously, I mean, keeping the digitalization in course, I think it can be done.
Yeah, thank you. It's more or less what we have discussed since the first day, that digitalization and technology transformation is not an end, but it's a mean to reach an end, and it should not leave anyone behind. I open the floor for questions and discussions now. And it's also important what you said, that it should not be made mandatory, the digitalization and the whole functioning of this digital system. And I would also like to bring another example from our case, because, as I mentioned, we are in this process of transformation, and we have included, I don't know exactly how many services online now. Since they are not yet full in efficiency, because not everyone can use them, it was done mandatory that by 1st of May, all the services should be online and all front desks should be closed. So can you imagine what problems it created? These old people waiting for their, in the social service for the pension and for other services. So yeah, I agree very much. It was very, very interesting, the analysis that you, and you touched very important and sensitive issues.
Because otherwise, if you don't keep, if you don't keep in place this human service, you are pushing them to hire intermediaries to do the job for them.
Exactly.
So it's putting on them more costs. And I think public administrations and governments should keep this in mind if they don't want to leave anyone behind, because for them, at the end, they will be left much more behind. It's not only because I don't follow digital tools, it's also because I have to pay an extra money that any other who does have this technological knowledge doesn't have to pay, can do it for themselves. Okay.
Perhaps this is a matter of time also. I mean, let me come back to here. Who used a city plan to get here to this place? Nobody, huh?
City plan, well,
You did?
Google.
Yeah, Google, yes, but that's digital, isn't it? Yeah. So you have a digital here, you have it here, digital, and you key in the address, and then you say, oh, go there. So, of course, this is digital. So, of course, you need a smartphone. You need to pay for a smartphone. You need to know how to use a smartphone. And so what's the consequence now? I mean, would you say, no, we don't need use this technology because not everyone is able to use it? I mean, when you look to Africa, for instance, people are illiterate, so they have a problem. But they find their way to do it, and especially younger people, they do it. It's so widespread, the use of this technology in Africa, for instance. And so I would say this is, I agree totally, but I think this is a period of transition. In 10 or 20 years from now, not many will talk about it, yes, perhaps some elder people, very old people, I have to say, some very old people, and disabled people, they need support, but they need support for many things, and so I would say we are in a transition period about that.
Could I just, I completely agree with you, but regarding people with disabilities, I'm not sure how we'll solve that, because this UN convention I mentioned, I mean, they are supposed, they are not supposed, they do have and enjoy the same rights. And we have to, in fact, literally says they have to rule to provide them with appropriate support in exercising their legal capacity. So somehow you'll have to maintain forever, because I hope there will always be people with disabilities, you'll have to maintain some human support for some special cases. But I don't think it's a problem for digital development. I think we can do it simultaneously, complementary.
And what is important is what you already mentioned, that this is a process of transition. We cannot pretend immediately that everyone is able to use them, so you have to leave a time. But to my thinking is that what our government did is mostly to make aware people that they have all these services online and they have to use these services. So it was a kind of alert, putting people in alert that look, that very soon this will happen. Any comment from the audience? So I don't see any. In that case, can Secretariat put on the screen the decision for this agenda item 16? Yes, you can read. Comment? Okay, the committee then agreed with well, okay, I'm reading because I see that there is a doubt about that, if I should read or not read.
No, I think it's fine.
I think it's fine,
Yeah, if
yeah.
anybody has any,
Yeah. So
if anybody
there's not
has any
comments?
concern, yes, they will just raise their flag, so I think it's okay. Does anybody have any comments on the decision? It's just...
I don't see any, so thank you very much. We have finished then with this agenda item 16. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now we pass to the agenda item 17. And we change the panel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item 17, country profiles on urban development, housing and land management. And the relevant document under this agenda item is found in ECE/HBP/2022/5. At the 82nd session of the committee in October 21, the Secretariat informed participants on the progress with the development of the country profile on urban development, housing and land management of Albania. Meanwhile, we will have in the panel Ms. Elena Slojgarova, chair of #2030 Housing Initiative, that will speak about the country profile for Montenegro. But before that, I will update you about the preparations for the country profile for Albania, and including also mobilization of resources. With this regard, I would like to remind that it has been a request presented to the committee, I think 2 sessions ago, or 3 sessions ago in 2019, or yeah. And since then, it has been also due to COVID-19, it has not been possible to raise funds, and that's why we have been postponing the initial mission of the Secretariat for that. But as I mentioned these days, 1 week before coming here, we had a workshop that we organized with UNECE, and we used also that workshop for establishing a kind of network and as a generator for some funding to initiate the country profile. Major components of the country profile, at least what has been transmitted from my side representing the Department of Housing Policies at the Ministry of Finance and Economy, are you know how country profile is developed. It gives analysis of the situation, very thorough analysis of all components of economy and social aspects, and also housing and land management. However, the priorities for this country profile would be the housing finance, so different instruments for housing, for financing housing. Yesterday, I also had an emergency from the ministry asking to develop the idea of a mortgage security system, because the government wants to assist young people to get into mortgage for housing, mortgage loan for housing. But not only these instruments, we want to go in depth in what we can apply in the case of Albania, given its specificities. It was mentioned here very often, each country has its specificities, and that's why perhaps housing is so much diverse and not possible to be under one umbrella. We will have so this in-depth analysis of potential instruments that can be used also to use the housing markets, because we have a very dynamic housing market. And with this regard, we would like also to have an analysis of the real estate market in particular in Tirana, since it is the most vibrant city and where all the developments are happening. In line with this, we also would like to have an in-depth on data for housing related with SDGs and different sources and how to connect our information with reporting for SDGs. It's something that we have initially done with the UNDP, but we want to go more in depth in that because we want to budget SDGs that are related to housing. Other thematic will be related with these priorities for us. Surely they go in line with housing financing. Housing finance cannot be considered separately by land and land policies and land management. These are some of the lines that the country profile for Albania will include. We will have a mission by December from Secretariat, and by the time I hope that we will have also identified the experts that will be engaged in supporting us with developing the country profile. So this is the information from my side, and I now give the floor to Ms. Elena Slojgajova, who is now chair of hashtag 2030 Housing Initiative, but she is a long-lasting colleague, friend, and also chair of this committee, which has done a wonderful job in all her chairing the committee, but also with the study on Housing 2030. Elena, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Doris, for kind words. Actually, we should have been two presenting intended country profile for Montenegro with the colleague from Montenegro, but unfortunately she couldn't come, so I will try to inform you about what the intentions are, what we have found so far. You know very well that the country profile is something like our pride of our committee. We are very, very proud about having this format, and it was very useful in the past. I come from Slovakia, and we had our country profile prepared in 1999, so in the last century, so to say. And it was very useful for our policy making, and surprisingly, many of the recommendations from 1999 are still valid and still not fulfilled in our country. So this learned us that you really need to be, as a public administration, you need to be extremely patient and to have this long-term vision and to fight for it. And don't be negatively impacted by different political changes which are coming on the way, and you really, the country needs to try to keep the common sense in deciding about things. Well, the Montenegro is the smallest from Western Balkan countries. It has some 620,000 inhabitants. 1/3 of them live in the capital, and there are serious regional disparities between rural north and affluential coastal line and the capital. Well, the Montenegro got its independence in 2006. In 2008, applied for the membership in EU. In 2010, started the negotiations, and in 2017, joined NATO. So it's really a small country, but very dynamic and very ambitious. And in trying to reach their aims, they really become the European country in the best sense. They are doing a lot of changes in the legislation and policy making, and among them also in housing. And actually it is rather surprising that well, they became independent in 2006, and already in 2010 they adopted the first strategy of housing development, so the first housing policy. So they were very, I would say, very well prepared in a mental state to react on their challenges. And they are also a very active member of our committee, so they applied officially for the country profile preparation. But in the meantime, they are actually preparing also the second strategic document, the housing policy to 2030. And this is the case, you know, it would be very good to have this interim time where you can stop and have time to rethink and prepare things and have the country profile done, and then after having all these recommendations to start preparing the document. This is not the case. They have to do their work, but they are also trying to react on what the time and the knowledge, international knowledge brings. And therefore they applied also for a short, brief assessment of what was done already in the past and what were the barriers for implementing the different aims, and to have some first reaction on the draft document of the new housing strategy. And this is what I would like to inform you a little bit about what we have found in this very short assessment, which was carried out between March and summer this year. Well, as I said, Montenegro adopted the first housing policy, which was actually very well structured according to our recommendations in our committee, how the policy should look like, what different aspects the policy should cover. And they also adopted very important law on social housing. And they actually also assessed what would be the need of the new housing units, which would be in the segment of affordable housing. They also explained in their document what were the priorities of the country, and they are not surprisingly three of them. One is affordable housing for many kinds of social groups in the country, not only the most vulnerable, but also the middle class of different segments of social activity. Then existing housing stock. What to do with the existing housing stock, which typically, like in other transitional countries, started to be privatized to the sitting tenants in a rather bad technical condition, and left these new tenants with the task to cope with the new situation, where the people are actually not prepared, they are not aware what is expected from them to do, and not to speak about the fact that there are no financial instruments to support them, even if they would decide that they would do something. So this is existing housing stock and energy efficiency. And because Montenegro is trying to become the member of EU, where energy efficiency is very high priority, and very strongly pushed through also through European legislation, they are actually there facing the very strong challenge. And then there is the issue which is again rather typical for the region, and this is illegal structures, illegal settlements and illegal buildings. And maybe I would try, because well, I can go very lengthy about what's there, but what we have found. Although in the new housing policy, Montenegro very clearly described what would be the target groups of possible support in affordability of new housing, they actually never explicitly explained that it should happen in more or less in public rental regulated segment. And what we have found that they have several programs to approach this affordability, but at the end of the day, most of them actually supported ownership. And this is not the case. This is not the proper way how to do it. This is not efficient enough, By this approach, actually, the country is losing one of the most valuable resources, which is land, public rent, which is put into these schemes, and which becomes very quickly, with no compensation, the part of open market. And this is rather dangerous. So this is one of the first recommendations became, this attitude needs to be reassessed, and much stronger and more explicit focus should be done on publicly owned, either municipal or state-owned, public rental housing, because they don't have this not-for-profit sector yet in the country at all. So this is this affordable housing. Then, what to do with this existing housing stock? Unfortunately, during this 10 years period, there were some attempts to do some energy efficiency, small projects, but it was targeting mostly the individual housing, individual family houses. And actually nothing happened, really nothing happened in the segment of multi-apartment buildings. And if we realize that the most of this housing stock is 30 and more years old, and usually there was no general repair made in the last 10, 20 years, you can imagine technically how a huge challenge this is. And it is also very complex, and this is one of the specificities which was referred to today, regional specificities. And this privatized housing stock in transitional countries is a very specific issue. And thanks God, we have got some good examples how to approach it. But again, this consists of plenty of different complementary steps and activities which must be done on the national level, on a legal scale, then on the financial scale, preparing some instruments, then having knowledge about technical aspects of that, and then having the proper communications with the owners and managers of housing stock, which then enables at the end of the day really become part of the broader scheme of refurbishment of multi-apartment buildings. So this is the other issue. And the third issue, this is illegal structures. And you know, those who are attending for a longer time these sessions, you know that we paid a lot of attention to issue of legalization of illegal structures. And we discussed a lot why these illegal structures actually appear. And this is again one of these regional specificities. Some regions tend to respect or disrespect the legal framework of the country more and some less. And for different reasons, people behave how the society lets them to behave. And this is the case with these illegal structures in, well, I would say in general in Balkans. To have very well organized and legal land administration, you need the structures, institutions. What we found in the case of Montenegro doesn't unfortunately work at all. Because we found that most of the publicly owned property, either on national or municipal level, is not included into the cadastral systems. So even these new housing units which were supported through the last decade, there is no trace of them. They don't exist formally in the cadastre. So, you know, just to realize that this is really a challenge. And it needs to be, because it's also very sensitive, politically sensitive. Because for some people, and some of strong people in the country, it is good that there is no this trace, that there is no proper register, that there is no registration. It leaves space for different games which might be interesting. So, and then on the other hand, when really countries started to do something in this way of legalization with the proper steps, they included the new legislation on legalization of illegal settlements in 2018, and it amended it 2 years ago in 2020. But this actually, one of the preconditions of the processes envisaged in the law is to have the proper and up-to-date spatial planning documents. And again, you need to start on the country level. but the spatial planning document on the national level is not ready yet. And until the document on the national level is prepared, the municipalities below, they can't prepare an up-to-date document themselves. And according to law, it is the municipalities who have to technically and practically cope with the legal construction. So one of the steps which the law envisaged was that there was an orthophoto map prepared of all the regions of Montenegro, showing technically and physically where are the dots. But this happened in 2018. And it was said that all those who are illegal should report and should apply for legalization. More than 50,000, and this is a very small country, more than 50,000 applications came. And in fascinating way, the administration actually managed to go through 46,000 of them, so majority of them, 95%. But only less than 2,000 were legalized. And it took 3 years. And in the meantime, there are many new illegal buildings on the spot. So this is a very huge issue. So to summarize, what we have learned from the past document that formally Montenegro did all the proper steps, but was not successful enough in implementing the ambitions and the goals of the documents because of different things, like because of having no functional cadastre, because of having no up-to-date data on housing, this was tackled today, because not having appropriate, well-functioning land administration system, because having no stable, long-term, stable financing on the national level. Because if it were not for international banks, and mainly the Council of Europe Development Bank, CAB, only very little would have happened in Montenegro, we have to say. And this needs, and it's somebody today in the morning with this land administration, that you need political awareness. And it is very difficult to raise political awareness for housing because between the vision and the result, it is too long time. And for politicians who run in 4 years, usually, cycles, it is not interesting. It lasts much longer. We all know Doris is here for years, I am here for years, many of you are here for years, and you all know that it takes decades, not years. So, we hope that we will be able to start to prepare the country profile for Montenegro, putting and actually filling in all the gaps which there are, both in facts and data, then maybe raising the awareness and maybe coming with some proposals how to practically approach these 3 very important priorities Montenegro has. And I hope that next year we will be able to report a little bit on some successes of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena, for giving us this in-depth and very extended picture of the situation in Montenegro and the way how we are going to approach it. To my ear is not new what you said, is like listening to my previous stories, and because we already started this process of legalization in 2004, 2006, and at the time we had 270,000 applications for legalization, and it was said that everything that is aerial photographed will be legalized and everything will be demolished. And since 2006, the time schedule was extended in 2009, another time in 2013, and now this number is 3 times more than at least three times more. And this is not about only providing houses for the poor, not anymore. This is for speculation. This is, even in the center of Tirana, buildings that are, have been provided with license, with building permit, very luxury buildings designed by well-known architects. It is discovered that they have some 5 or 6 floors more. Yeah. So now a new law will be approved what to do with these cases. So it's very complicated, and it's not that it needs a lot of work from vision to results. It's because there is a lot of complexities, political and interests in the way. And the legalization process is very much politicized, and that's why I didn't mention it, because I cannot do, and a report cannot do anything with the recommendations that can give.
So at least we hope that we will be able to touch it very politely, in a way maybe starting from these technicalities like properly functioning cadastral and administration systems, and slowly preparing the, I would say, the floor for the next even more sensitive steps. But, well, there is always some way.
Yes, thank you. Any question or comment from the audience? Yes? Uzbekistan, yeah?
Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you very much for this discussion. I want to make a request, please. This year we have the decree of the President of Uzbekistan, and according to this, a new system of regulation of construction and design at municipal, city, regional and national level is right now in the development stage. Every region of Uzbekistan and urban area have to develop a number of documents, including the main scheme of the special development of the region, master plans, infrastructure plans and other documents. So now we our country really needs some fundamental documents to develop our master plans, etc. And I think a country profile of Uzbekistan can become such a fundamental document for our country. So I want to make a request for the development of a country profile in a collaboration with Uzbekistan government, and we're ready to make the full support to developers and to our colleagues from UNECE if we can develop this document together with our working group. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We noted that, the request, and it will be reflected in the report. Okay, and I also wanted to support what Elena did, that this country profile is important in our efforts to implement and to propose new policies and legislation. And I would like, because for Slovakia it was end of the previous century, for Albania the first country profile was the beginning of the new century. And, I was using it as an argument for proposing the reform of housing policy that started in early 2000, and we succeeded to have new legislation completely by 2004, 2006. So it's, it has a very strong use and importance if you know how to manage with that, and how to approach also the difficult stages and steps. Okay, so I don't see any further request for the floor. The Secretariat can show on the screen the decision for this agenda item. If you have any comment. If not, it is decided and agreed on this agenda item. Thank you. Thank you, Elena. finished with this agenda item. Now we pass to the agenda item 18, Program of Work of the Housing and Land Management component of the Housing, Land Management and Population Subprogram. It sounds a bit strange, the names of this. Yeah, I know, for 2023, and recommendations on key components of the Program of Work for 2014. You have several documents on this. I read them, ECE/HBP/2022/5/9/10/inf.11. The committee has been presented with information on the activities implemented during 21 and 22 and the previous session, and now you will be listening from Hannah the program of work for 23 and 24. So Hannah, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Just briefly, this is, sorry. Yes. This is the document that we have to present to New York. So, you know that New York decides on the program. Just a little bit about the long title of the document of the program, because in the UNECE, we're part of the, it's housing and population. So it's like this component of housing in this big program, which is housing and population, housing, land management and population. So I'll ask my colleague to just go through down the pages. And yes, so this, please keep going down, please, yes. Now you'll see that we have added some changes in track change mode. So if you can show them. Yeah, as you go down, it's PDF, yes, but there are some track changes. Yes, go down. You see? So what happened is that we tried, I think I should go closer to that screen because okay. So you can see what we tried to do is we have to insert the changes in track change mode. So this component, if you scroll a little bit up, I'm sorry for this because I don't have, yes, a little bit up. So this is here is basically where the objectives are. So to contribute to all of these are the objectives. So what we're trying to do when we do the track change, if you go down a little bit, please. Yes, more. Yes. So we're saying that we want to provide assistance to national and local governments with the development of evidence-based urban and housing policies. Why we added local? Because it is clear that some cities, most of the cities, do not have their own sources, database. They do not have statistical information. Now, of course, we know that the only legitimate source of information is the National Bureau of Statistics, and they are the only one who have the legal rights to develop statistics at the national, regional, and all levels. However, sometimes cities can have like quick analysis, for example, of enterprise dynamics, which they can run themselves in collaboration through their different departments. And what we're speaking about is like databases of trends and pulse, like economic pulse, housing pulse, where it is just a kind of to see what are the main key issues and needs. So when we did this emerging needs on, in light of the Ukrainian refugee crisis, it was very difficult. Some cities didn't have information and they did not have the capacity to develop surveys and run and analyze quickly. So, you know, these quick surveys. So hence, this is why we added local. Then we support the strengthening of national, again, and local governments' capacities to design, implement, and monitor urban resilience and related plans. Why we said that? Because I think COVID, hopefully, this is a plan for 2024, so hopefully we'll not be speaking about COVID. I hope so. And the idea is just to say resilience in general to all type of negative shocks and disasters. So plans, sustainable urban infrastructure development projects, multi-stakeholder partnerships to unlock further financing and partnerships, my God, this is a long sentence, for the implementation of these plans and projects, and innovative financing, also through the work of the Geneva UN Centers of Excellence. So what we're trying to say here is to look into resilience, not only economic resilience in 3 dimensions, economic, social, and environmental, so hence we removed economic. So it's just resilience in the broader partnership, and also look into project financing, and involve also the Geneva UN Centers of Excellence, and of course all our experts. So this is what we are changing in track changes, and of course here it's no longer the 3rd Forum of Mayors, it will be the 4th Forum of Mayors, subject to the decision of EXCOM, so I don't know what to do with this paragraph. So we said it's 4th because this is about the program of work for 2024. If you scroll down, please. Okay, then the above mentioned, no, just this is too fast. The above mentioned work in the area of housing and land management is expected to result in. So this document, we're supposed to say the objectives and expected results. So increased capacity of national local governments for the development of housing, urban development, policies and programs which integrate the concepts of the 2030 Agenda, the Geneva UN Charter on Sustainable Housing and relevant best practices, including those developed and shared by the Centers of Excellence. What we're trying to stay here is to show that the Centers of Excellence are also not just there, because they were before mentioned in a brief way. Here we're trying to elaborate how. So again, this is a program where it's result-based. So I took you through the objectives, what were the changes, and now how we reflect them in the results. So if you go back down a little bit, okay, then, yes. We support the strengthening of national and local government capacities to design. I think we went through this, no? It's down. Yes. Yes, okay. Then we also looked into, based on the updated guidelines, actually it should be revised guidelines, because they were totally revised. So for the development of the VLRs and the ECE region, and the ECE ITU key performance indicators, because as was mentioned yesterday, these were going to be complemented based on the experience gained. If any methodology stays the same, this means that there is something wrong. Methodology should be always updated based on lessons learned. So, any objections to these changes? Any questions? Then here, more effective local urban development and housing policies and related resilience plan. Again, COVID was just removed to say only resilience plans. If you agree, we will just put revised. If you go up a little bit, we say revised guidelines and not updated, because we revised them. If this is agreeable, revised, yes. And put it in track changes, please, John. I can hear him from here. Because they have different keyboards. Thank you so much. Thank you. If we go down a little bit. Yes. This is the table. We were supposed to, yes, keep going. Thank you so much. So these are the number of documents that we're supposed to produce. They count the documents that we produce. So for this committee, we have the right for only specific documents that can be translated into the 3 languages. As you can see, the budget, everything. So this is the number of documents that we're supposed to be producing. Yes, go down. There is no changes here. We're fine. And urban development, because it's not only housing and land management, it's also and urban development, as per the name of our committee. So we have to go down as well. Yes, that's it, right? Okay. So are you okay with all these track changes? Do you have any questions? No? So, okay. So we keep them then. Okay. Sure? No questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. You have the document in your files, ECE/HBP/2022/5, so you can check the changes, perhaps if they went too fast. Okay, so I don't see any request for the floor, for any comment or question. In that case, please, Secretariat, show on the screen the decision. For agenda item 18. Yeah.
I just want to highlight, you have been listening throughout the day of what we have been doing. So the country profiles, the city profiles, and all of this. So I don't think I need to just go again. And so it has been, all the activities are there, you have been listening. So I think that solves number A.
So you have taken notes. Yeah. Any comment to the draft decision? I don't see any, so this agenda item is decided, the decision is taken, and I thank you, and I use this one for the first time. So the committee decided for its program of work for 23 and 24. Thank you. And we pass to the agenda item 19, update on technical cooperation activities. The document on this is the same. Yeah. Yeah. And I inform Gulnara will be here. Yeah. Oh yeah, Gulnara, can you? Gulnara, the Regional Advisor, Forest, Land and Housing Division, will brief the committee on the technical cooperation.
And then all of these as well.
And also, I invite Ms. Olga Damianenko, Director, Department of Cooperation with International Agencies and Financial Institutions from Kharkiv City Council, Mr. Alberto Sindoya, Architect at the Design and Technology Unit of Norman Foster Foundation, Aru Berlin. Yeah, that's it.
And what about...
Who?
Will you invite me? It's after that, after the lunch. They can come? Okay, okay. Because then there is also these, because we're supposed to be after.
So we invite, because I think that we are a bit early, and we invite, because this agenda item is divided in two parts, before and after the lunch break, and I think that we can manage to have them during this before lunch. And I invite Mr. Dmitro Falco, Chairman of Mykolaiv City Council of Ukraine, and Ms. Anna Paez, Program Manager, One Works.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Okay, so we can start, and those that are not present because they have planned after that, you can join us in meantime. Thank you. So Gulnara, the floor is yours first.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Chair. It's working, right? It's working now? Yes, it's working, it's working. Yes, still good morning, good dear colleagues. So great to see you again. So I would like just first of all make a very short introduction about what is the technical cooperation under the UNECE, because there was also, in a way, changes how we organize our work on projects. So just to explain you a bit more, the technical cooperation is very important to support implementation of the program of work of the committee, of course. And it is implemented in the countries with economies in transition, and it really supports implementation of the UNECE legal instrument, norms and standards, so basically all the activities under the program of work also of this committee. What is new in the way we are working on the technical cooperation is the fact that we have much stronger connection to the country teams. So if earlier we worked directly to local governments, local and national governments, on specific projects, now we're really working very closely to the UN Resident Coordinator Office. So for instance, I have regular meetings now with the UN Resident Coordinator, with let's say UNDP or UN Women, any other agencies in the countries. Also at the UNECE, what we have, the arrangements that we also have that we have, I think, 6 regional advisors, and also we divided in a way regions between ourselves. So for instance, I'm regional advisor, kind of a focal point for Ukraine and Turkey, but then other regional advisors also working with other countries. So it's a new approach, and this is why we have one person who is communicating on regular basis to the UN Resident Coordinator's Office. Second innovation is, in addition to the very strong communication to the country team, so we work with all the UN agencies, like as a family at the country level, we're also working with all international organizations. So for instance, now there is institutional connection to the European Investment Bank, or there is institutional connection to the EBRD, so this really helps us to structure our cooperation also, let's say, with international financial institutions much better and more efficiently. So after this more general explanation, just to give you a few bullet points about kind of main direction of technical cooperation projects under the program of work of this committee. So as you know, I already heard Kat also presented that there was a Housing 2030 initiative. It's about implementation of the policy tool, and definitely we're planning to continue working on the Housing 2030, also including through policy advice to the countries, but also through the country profiles of the housing sector. And you heard today a presentation, for instance, of Elena Zholgayova, who did assessment on about Montenegro, and we are planning also to have the country profile, for instance, for Montenegro. So this is really the idea of the Housing 2030 is, as a next stage, really to promote a systematic change in the housing policies, just moved from, these regional workshops and general capacity building in really implementation of specific housing policies based on analysis and evidence-based. Second project that we completed the first phase, and I presented already about building urban economic resilience after COVID. So we also plan to continue this work and really focusing on specific tools like legalization of informal settlements, using the nature-based solutions to really help cities to overcome the COVID crisis, but also other crises and other issues. Third, the informal settlements remains to be a very big issue, and we are already discussing now about what kind of activities could be done to implement better policy. You heard from Bishkek that they are doing a very concrete work on the 5 informal settlements, including the investments. So we are discussing as well about what could be done as a next step in this post-COVID recovery informal settlements projects that we started before. You heard already presentations on the smart sustainable cities with innovative financing, and with the cities we will continue working on the innovative financing part after this session. And of course, all these activities are important to support achieving SDGs at the local level. we as UN are mandated to help countries to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. So therefore, voluntary local reviews, we have just started a joint project with UN Habitat jointly, and I would like to use this opportunity to thank Graham, who is the head of the Geneva office here. So most of the projects are done jointly with UN Habitat, which is our partner, and also, of course, with other UN agencies. So this project is led by UN Habitat, but it will be implementing the revised regional guidelines for the voluntary local reviews. So now this session will be presenting in depth our very important project, which started in April. It is about supporting cities in Ukraine. So it has the name of the UN for Kharkiv and UN for Mykolaiv initiatives. So just to give you a little bit history, so in April, after the war started, the government of Ukraine and the Ministry of Communities, with whom we work on a regular basis, they invited us to develop a pilot project in the city of Kharkiv, but also support with analysis of the reconstruction at the national level. So I think the important milestone was the Forum of Mayors, where the mayor of Kharkiv and Lord Foster met, and it really brought the start of a very important cooperation. I will not stop really on the details, because our two teams for UN Kharkiv and UN Mykolaiv will make all the presentation, but just show you on slides kind of the key milestones of this cooperation, but this presentation will be available online, so you will see it. I would like to invite you to the next thematic workshops. We'll be organizing a series of thematic workshops to explain again, these workshops are not simply workshops. They are organized directly on the requests of the cities. Kharkiv, Mykolaiv, for instance, one of the important workshops that we will be organizing, and I'm very glad we discussed also with Raja yesterday with Finland. Yesterday, one of the important workshops will be organizing, for instance, on underground shelters. This is something which is very important for the cities. So we are trying really to be as agile as possible and to really respond to requests with the themes and topics which are of priority request from the cities in Ukraine. So would like to invite you to join us at this workshop, so you see some of those workshops. Healthy Cities, for instance, will be organized by WHO and UN Habitat. So this is information, and our call is, as always, join us, because what we found now as implementing projects in Ukraine is that your expertise is very much needed. As this request was going very, very fast, we don't really have time as a usual way to fundraise for a year and then get a project in. So the only way for us it was, we knew, we had an expert on shelters in Finland, we had an expert on housing management in Germany and Estonia, so we just called them up and said, guys, join. So we also invite you to join and express your interest, but also, we speak with some of our donor country. Of course, we would be very appreciated for any in-kind support, financial support, because you know that the whole of the personnel of this unit is Hannah and me and Hannah. So therefore, we need also the human resource in kind, but also we still need a lot of technical assistance, like on interpretation, translation, Zooms in Geneva. So we would really appreciate all your support you can provide, because these projects, I believe these projects are very practical, they have an impact. So please, we are we were very open and really happy to discuss. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gulnara, for the information that you shared with us on the cooperation activities, technical cooperation activities. Many activities have you have organized in cooperation with different agencies and also interested countries that have hosted that. Now I invite Ms. Olga Damianenko, one of the important things is the call for assistance, so financial and in-kind assistance to all of you. Ms. Olga Damianenko, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. It's a great opportunity to be here and to share our little work that we already done on the great document that is tremendously important now for our city, for Kharkiv city as the master plan. And first of all, I would like to show you the video that will give you the more understanding than all my 100 words. What is going on now in the city, how we were living before 24th of February, and it will show you the main goals and aims that we are now willing to have after our victory. Thank you. Can we start the video, please?
Our home doesn't end outside the apartment. The streets of our city are also our home, the city we love and create. At home, everything in its place. Your desk space, your mug, everything creates your comfort. Every little thing is important because you adjust it to your needs. The city works the same way. Every citizen of Kharkiv manifests in it, and the government hears their needs. Many progressive and innovative artistic and ecological projects grew rapidly and created comfort for the citizens. Over the past 5 years, the city has undergone significant infrastructural changes. Construction and reconstruction of boiler houses, thermal power plants, water and heating systems, construction of new and overhaul of existing bridges, expansion of transport highways. The attention to details and active work on development made Kharkiv one of the top 3 most comfortable cities in Ukraine. While getting rid of the Soviet heritage, Kharkiv created its own unique face. But the war suddenly broke into our home, and the destruction affected every area. Dwelling houses, kindergartens, schools, hospitals, infrastructure facilities, administrative buildings, public transport, cultural and architectural monuments were destroyed and damaged. We do not fear. Our road to the future was bombed and shelled, which caused great damage, but we didn't change our direction. Even under bombardments, we continued to work, rebuild, and live as the bravest, most loyal and loving people we are. We want to revive our Kharkiv, taking into account all the old mistakes that became critical during the war. We want to pay attention to the reformatting of the road and transport infrastructure. This complex issue should be solved by utilizing large-scale projects of building ring roads, dual-purpose underground parking lots, tunnels, multi-level transport interchanges, roads with lines dedicated for modern urban transport. No less important and strategically necessary is the development of the subway network, as Kharkiv specialists did before the war. After all, the subway is the fastest public transport. During the war, the subway became a safe haven for many Kharkiv residents who hid within its walls from enemy shells for several months. The imperfections of the city's infrastructure need to be fixed. New heating networks and water supply systems must be constructed in those areas where it was unfortunately destroyed. Reconstruction and renovation of heat sources inside the city will make us independent of heat coming from outside. The city's water supply system warrantably pushes us to build new water intakes and water lines, to change the scheme of water supply to the city. In order to make it more autonomous, and protected from external factors. Based on all the improved infrastructure, we will be able to build new, comfortable residential areas with modern courtyards and create recreational areas equipped with modern interactive equipment, where every Kharkiv resident can spend time with benefit and pleasure. Special attention will be paid to the construction of bomb shelters. Kharkiv is a modern city that adheres to the concept of modern urbanism, which aims to unite green spaces in cities. It's not about park creation in our usual sense. We want to create nature inside the city, and the confirmation of this is the Green Frame project, the goal of which is to connect all park areas of the city into one network of green corridors with pedestrian and bicycle paths. Currently, the joint active work of the city with the support of United Nations Economic Commission for Europe is already underway on the creation of Kharkiv restoration concept and the updated master plan. The best international and Ukrainian experts have been involved, in particular the world-famous British architect Norman Foster, as well as the Norman Foster Foundation. Working groups have already been formed, which include Spanish and German specialists involved by Lord Foster, as well as our Kharkiv architects and urban planners. In the new and peaceful Kharkiv, we particularly want to pay attention to the IT sphere, industrial, high-tech parks, and industry. This is a chance to reconstruct large productions, to give them a second life. Ukraine is independent, and we want this independence to come to life in our urban and courageous city, the city that breathes with freedom. Now our freedom is in our spirit, and we want Kharkiv to function as freely as its residents think. We invite you to join in the development of a new city plan. After all, your experience, contribution, and participation are important. Become a part of Ukrainian courage. Support the revival of Kharkiv City.
Thank you very much for your attention. Of course, we understand that the war is still ongoing and to rebuild our city, but in spite of that, we want to rebuild our city and we want to start the planning of this rebuilding, because this also takes time, and then when the war will finish, we don't want to waste any more time. We want to start working on the revival of our city. We have a lot of damages, so we have what to do, and we need to create the normal, comfortable conditions for our people who are staying in Kharkiv and who are willing to come back to Kharkiv as soon as there will be the possibility. So we are very grateful for this work to UNECE and to other UN agencies which are working now together with us on this. And this is the very important work because, of course, Ukraine never faced such a challenge that we are facing today and such problems that we are facing today. And here are a lot of projects that we can do, a lot of plannings that we can involve to the master planning. They are very important to be done together with the international support, with the international expertise of different countries, because different countries have different experience in the different ways. We want to create new master plan. We want to not even update the master plan, but we want to create the new one because we have a lot of mistakes before, and we are now understanding those mistakes. This Soviet times heritage gave us those mistakes that we are now overcoming very hard in any infrastructure. If it's an engineering infrastructure or a housing infrastructure, we need to change a lot. And here, your assistance and your expertise is tremendously important. As Gulnara already said, we started our work on that from April 2022, after we created this working group, UN for Kharkiv, and we obtained the proposition from Mr. Lord Foster about under his auspices to create the new master planning for Kharkiv city, and we really thank for him, for all the experts that is now involved. I really thank to his team that are working, and we are now, starting from April, we are working honestly as a big family, and we are trying our best to avoid all the mistakes that was before in Kharkiv, to create absolutely new planning. And our goal here is to create the city of the future, the city that will be comfortable for people to live, for students to stay, because historically, Kharkiv, we always called it a young city, because every third person in Kharkiv is a student. We have more than 36 high educational institutions, and more than 300,000 people every year were graduating in Kharkiv from the university. So we want to preserve this, and we want to create all the necessary conditions and comfortable conditions for those young generation to stay in the city. So to create the city of the future with their IT parks, with the science parks, with the new approach of living in those facilities. And our team here will present the work on the master planning more precisely. I will not stop on that, but the main 3 points that we included in our work is, of course, first, we're working on the damage assessment and the assessment of all the infrastructure that was damaged. It's a great work, and here we're open for the cooperation. We are trying now to cooperate with different UN agencies on that, with different companies, because damage assessment is something new that never have been done in our country. And this is a great challenge to do it properly, but this is the basement. Without this, we cannot plan correctly everything that we would like to rebuild or reconstruct or even demolish and to put something new. So this is very important work, and we already started by our own forces, but of course we are open here for the cooperation. Also, we would like to develop the 3D model of our city, and we are very now strongly working on that together with our universities, together with the Foster Foundation also. So we are here, we want to have this 3D model of the city and then the real layout of the city, so it will be very easy to understand what was destructed, what was damaged, and where we can do something new. And of course, we had the approach now of having the pilot projects inside our master planning, and the pilot projects in the various fields, so cultural heritage, monuments, housing, new use of river banks, industrial repurposing, but on that all, I think my colleagues will be more exact with the information. So in the end, I just want to thank one more time to all the international support that are now given to Ukraine, and namely to our city, Kharkiv, and I hope for this support in the future, because a lot of topics and a lot of spheres where we are willing for your support. And only together we can stop this dictation, and only together we can fight for the democracy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Damianenko, for this overview of your city and the damages that you don't have words to, after what you see, the damages that are caused not by natural disaster, but by humans. And this is the absurd part of this, what is happening. While we struggle with the climate change and the need to adapt to climate changes, and we think of how to prevent, it's impossible to prevent such madness of human disasters. Now I give the floor to Mr. Alberto Sindoia from the Norman Foster Foundation.
Thank you very much for the invitation, and thank you especially Olga, Gulnara, for the amazing work that we have been developing together for the past months. I think I not only speak on behalf of myself, but also on behalf of Lord Foster, the team at the Foundation, Arab, Berlin, and really everyone that has been involved. It's really been an honor to be part of this work that has just started. We definitely have a lot of work to do. As Olga was saying, the destruction has been great, but the ambition in the city is even greater than the destruction they have suffered. And definitely that requires replying to that ambition with an equal amount of effort from the international sector to rebuild Kharkiv. When we met the local architects a few months ago, which are an essential part of the team, they were always defining Kharkiv as a frontier city, and that couldn't actually be more true. Kharkiv is located right next to the Russian border, a city of around 1.5 to 2 million population in its metropolitan area. And obviously, it has always been in the forefront of not just knowledge through the university, but also physically. And in this case, we think it will be in the forefront of a new master plan activity. So as Gulnara was very rightly saying, we are here because Mayor Terekov, and in the context of the Forum of Mayors that UNECE is organizing, invited Lord Foster and his foundation to help out in the reconstruction of the city. And Norman not just accepted, but he committed himself and a large team of individuals in the world to actually help out. And he was obviously seeking potentially the best experts and minds in the world to actually help out in this amazing task. So apart from the Kharkiv City Council, UNECE obviously coordinating us all, and the foundation, very quickly he formed an advisory board that would advise him in topics like international development, economics, policymaking, but also other fellow architects like Anne Lacaton, specialist in social housing. And obviously yesterday, I think this was mentioned, but really generous economist from Harvard at Glaser, Ian Golding from Oxford. So a lot of people with a lot of expertise in rebuilding countries in the past, but also in creating new plans for the future. It became very evident that an engineering partner was needed, and that's when Arab came on board. They're obviously, as you probably know, some of the best engineers in the world that have great expertise in master planning, in engineering infrastructure, in water, in environment. But the best minds in the world are also in Kharkiv. So as in other architecture projects and urban planning projects, establishing a local team of architects was essential. And without them, honestly, this wouldn't have been possible. They are not just the eyes of the ground, but they know the city best. They have great ideas already. As we were seeing from Olga, Kharkiv has this amazing ambition, amazing plan to be not just a green city, but a future-looking city, respecting heritage. So we're really tapping into this local knowledge that has been a huge discovery for us. And obviously this involves not just architects, but also transport engineers, citizens, the communications team that was essential to create this questionnaire that we will speak about very shortly. And obviously the wider UN community, because without Gulnara, without the UN, this really wouldn't have been possible, starting for the translations that we have to have every meeting with local architects, to actually involving all the international experts on transport, on past experiences that have been really essential. So once we formed the team, we actually set out to understand three very basic things. The first one, how was Kharkiv right before the war? The second one, the destruction that Kharkiv had faced. Obviously quite challenging because shellings were actually ongoing in April, in May, in June, in July, even up to date. And third one, very important one, to understand the ambitions for the future of the city. And this was impressive from the first meeting we had with Mayor Terekov. We were really surprised not just by the optimism and the bravery of the city, but also of the huge optimism that the city has in terms of being in the forefront of technology, of sustainability, of human development. And obviously, pictures that you have seen in Olga's presentation, but it's been really wonderful to involve so many people to actually help us out analyzing the city in all the housing, all the transport, and all the water infrastructures, and also really understanding the culture of the city. We produced this questionnaire along with the city and the communications team there that was really successful, more than 16,000 replies. And this was not just good to realize that there are some things in Kharkiv that are working extremely well, like the metro system, for example, is exemplary. But some other things that we weren't really expecting to have, which is most of the citizens, when we would ask them about what was missing in their houses, we thought we were going to get replies like improving facade insulations, one more room, more comfort, and most of them were saying we need shelters. So obviously this is something that when you're an architect or an urban planner, you really don't expect that you're going to be, designing new houses that have war shelters in it. So this questionnaire, for example, was essential for us and for the city to understand actually what the citizens require. So I'm not going to read all of these, but these are the 8 main conclusions that we have reached in the past months. Some are very positive. As I was saying, Kharkiv is amazing. It has really valuable heritage buildings. It has really good universities, amazing ambition. It has 4 rivers that it's quite surprising for a city. but it also has a lot of things that Olga was saying that are not working as well. The housing is usually outdated. Panel housings where 80% of the population is living require drastic help. Same thing goes with some transportation lines that are overground, that are relying on fuel, which now obviously is not accessible. So again, electrification is not just a matter of sustainability, but also a matter of survival. And this everything needs to be in context of climate change, which makes things even more complicated. So if we set out, this is an axis of what the city of Kharkiv is looking at. If we look at how a master plan, a traditional master plan is done, you usually end up with a big plan with different colors and regulations associated to each of those colors, which means how much you can build, the different uses that you have in each part of the city, and then these kinds of master plans actually inform real projects in real life. Kharkiv obviously is a city that is already existing, and has already a lot of plans, but has also very specific problems. So we think that this approach, given the experience of the city and the ambition of Mayor Terekov and the citizens, is actually not the best for Kharkiv. So we're actually starting from the pilot projects and building up for them. This has actually quite a few benefits. The first one is we are architects, we're urban planners, and we really enjoy to create projects that are actually going to end up being built for the citizens. So not just drawings and regulations, but real physical projects in the world. So starting with pilot projects after we have analyzed the city is a great way to test local regulations and to understand what are really the housing constraints and regulations, the industry constraints that are not allowing Kharkiv to grow as they wanted to. But it's also great to establish the exact financial needs that the city will need. Once you're able to understand local realities, local capacities in terms of industry and construction capabilities, you can really start to get an idea of what is actually the number that Kharkiv will be needing to rebuild. And obviously, as we were saying, create real applicable projects is essential for us. People need to see what their city is going to look like, and starting with pilot projects that then can actually be extrapolated to the rest of the city is really essential for us. In this process, obviously, locals and internationals will be working together, and this is probably the fourth reason why we think this approach is essential, which is giving the tools to locals to actually keep rebuilding and replanning the city as they wish. Obviously, we will be always there to help, but it's about building local capacities for them to actually be able to do this. So this has led us to identify 5 main pilot projects: heritage, housing, rivers, industry, and a science neighborhood. Obviously, some of these will have a series of sites in the city, and accompanying these 5 kind of pilot projects, there will be some overarching topics in energy, in water, in transport that we have to look at in a general aim. So I'm not going to go very detailed into that, but as Olga was showing us in the beautiful video, the city center in Kharkiv is unbelievably beautiful. It has parks, it has an opera house, it has amazing architectural landmarks like Dersprom building in Freedom Square, and there's really a lot of potential in many of these areas to recover what these heritage sites could be. And obviously for this we want to rebuild the damages that have been generated in the city, in the historical buildings, but we also want to create new landmarks following on the experience of Lord Foster in the reconstruction of Berlin with the Reichstag as well, because we think it's important that the city is looking to the future. And obviously, we are very generous as well to collaborate with artists such as Pistoletto in Italy that are very generous in donating their work. And I didn't say it before, but obviously we're very grateful to all the team for donating their work in the past months. This has been really generous from everyone's side. Second project, housing, actually is one of the essential ones. It's where people live, and for this, we're again very grateful to Juan Lacaton, the French Pritzker-winning architect, a pioneer in social housing projects. We want to use the best examples in the world in Eastern Germany and also here in France in this project in Bordeaux to actually reuse the debris that unfortunately are being generated in the city and to repurpose a local industry to actually foment that local industries are the ones rebuilding Kharkiv. We were learning in the past months as well that unemployment rates are very high in the city, and obviously it would be really good to not just build new houses by international standards, but also that the locals are actually the ones rebuilding their city through new industries. This would obviously involve upgrading existing facade to improve insulation. This is key, so gas is not used in excessive ways, but also to promote bigger houses with larger footprints, thanks to these modules that we would be adding in the housings. For this, obviously, industry is essential. 20% of the land in Kharkiv is devoted to industry. It used to be not just the industrial center of Ukraine, but also one of the most important ones in the Soviet Union. And some of these industries have been unfortunately bombed, but some others were actually quite outdated and not really making it up after the economical crisis. So we think it's essential to give new industrial uses to these factories. So starting from the housing one, but also moving to other areas like agriculture and actually integrating technology and the IT sector that Kharkiv already has developed into these new two types of industries. Olga was speaking about the rivers. This is definitely true. 4 rivers that are connecting the entire city, not just the city center, but also these industries and housing districts we were seeing. And we think these rivers need to be recovered into pedestrian and cycleways that connect the city and that also promote a natural and water kind of environment through the entire network of the city. Just 4 pictures of how different these rivers are from the city center to the big lake that Olga was showing us. But it's interesting to see how these rivers are very different in the area. So we would like to do 3 pilot projects in the rivers so they can be extrapolated to the wider areas. And finally, the science neighborhood. The mayor actually in the first meeting said that they really wanted Kharkiv to generate new knowledge, to be really innovative, and for this that a science park would be essential for them. Norman obviously not only agreed, but kind of said that a science park had to be reinvented for Kharkiv, and the traditional science parks would need to incorporate new types of housing, new types of mixed-use typologies, and also the forefront of technology in autonomous energy, and that a new neighborhood should be created that would be as equally iconic as Kharkiv's beautiful heritage. So we think Kharkiv has all the needed ingredients to be at the forefront of innovation, of scientific advancements as they have been in the past. And for this, again, we're very grateful to have the collaboration of the MIT City Science team in order to create a new science neighborhood that would not only create new knowledge, but also bridge the gap between the different densities that we see between the city center and where people live in neighborhoods in the outskirts. So again, we're bringing the best knowledge we can to have this very futuristic but also very human-centered approach to a new neighborhood that would bring Kharkiv right to the forefront of urban development and technology. So in the same way that the local architects at the beginning were saying that Kharkiv was the frontier city because of its closeness to Russia, we have seen through the past that they have always been at the forefront of development. They established their first fortress hundreds of years ago, right in front of the Russian area, and the universities that they have ever created and the industrial partnerships that they have developed over the centuries have seen that Kharkiv is actually in the frontier of not just physical frontiers, but also in the frontiers of technological development, of ideas, of social progress. And definitely we're seeing this with Olga, with Gulnara, and with everyone that we have been involved in. So I'd like to once again thank you everyone involved, and let's keep working, right?
Thank you, Alberto, for this wonderful work that you are doing. It's amazing the ability that it comes also from the ability of Lord Norman Foster, as he explained also in his speech one day before yesterday, to cooperate with different specialization, and this is also very important for this case. And what also I would like to highlight in this case is the fact that you are working with pilot projects. This is very interesting because it makes very concrete the planning process and the outcome of that. And I think that it may become after that a kind of guidelines on how to approach, because the cities that are affected now by the war are not the only ones that are suffering from distractions. There are also cities that are suffering from different factors, climate, like tsunami or earthquakes. So this may be used as a guideline for our work and to share it with our committee. Yeah, thank you for your wonderful work. Now we have Mr. Dmytro Falko, Chairman of Mykolaiv City Council from Ukraine.
Dear Chair, dear delegates, participants, dear colleagues, thank you very much for the opportunity to present to you the case of city of Mykolaiv as the Ukrainian example of the wartime city. Mykolaiv is an industrial... One moment, please. Yeah, fine. Now it's fine. So, Mykolaiv is an industrial city situated in the south of Ukraine. It has a unique geographical position in the northern Black Sea region at the confluence of two rivers, Pivdenny Bug and Ingul. The distance between Mykolaiv and the capital of Ukraine, situated in Kyiv, is about 490 kilometers. And currently the city is in close proximity to the temporarily occupied territories, namely the city of Kherson, which is in 60 kilometers from Mykolaiv. Sorry, can you use this one? Thank you. That would be... How to turn it on? Hello? Hello? Yes? No? Okay. So now it's definitely fine. All right. So it's in 60 kilometers to occupied territories, namely Kherson, and it's about 20-25 kilometers next to the front line of the hostilities. So that's why it allows to Russian troops to shell the city on daily basis with the artillery and missiles and rockets as well. Since the beginning of the war, there was only 29 days free of shelling. So we are not bombed only for 29 days. Here on the map, you can see with the red is the occupied territories, and with the green, those are territories which were occupied by Russian troops, but then they were thrown back from those territories, and these territories were free from then. Actually, at the beginning of March, Russian troops entered Mykolaiv region and moved forward to the city, and some of fightings, some of battles took places in some areas of the city. And after that, Russian troops were thrown back to Kherson, and in the end of March, at the 24th of March, for the heroism and resilience of the citizens in the defense of their city, Mykolaiv was awarded the honorary title Hero City of Ukraine. So just short presentation about the city. Mykolaiv is quite young. It was established in 1789 as a shipbuilding and naval city. Actually, during the whole existence, everything in the city was about the shipbuilding. For instance, my uncle, after graduating shipbuilding university, he was involved in construction works for air carrier Varyak, which then was sold to China and became the flagship of China fleet Liaoning in 2012. At the same, it was about 8,000 people involved in construction of Varyak. Totally, about 150,000 people were involved in shipbuilding industry and some next industries in Mykolaiv. And mostly it was military shipbuilding. I should tell that this missile cruiser Moscow, who was sunk in the beginning of May, was also one of the Russian ships, was also built in Mykolaiv, Irony, but it was shattered by Mykolaiv military troops. So, for the moment, it's a young city, developing city with a big Soviet legacy, The total area of the city is about 260 square kilometers, which is quite a lot for a city with a population about 500,000 inhabitants. Prior to the start of full-scale invasion of the troops of Russian Federation into territory of Ukraine, the population of the city was about 480,000 people. The war entailed a reduction in the population of almost 50% due to the relocation of population to safer cities in the western part of Ukraine and abroad. The economic potential of Mykolaiv was characterized by diversified industry and extensive transport network and port facilities. Actually, since 1991, when the production of shipbuilding industry decreased, Mykolaiv became a port city of port, and every year quantity of cargoes increased, and last year 23% of all the cargo handling in Ukraine was carried through Mykolaiv ports. Actually, with the unique geographical location of Mykolaiv, because it's situated on the banks of Dnipro-Bugsky estuary, and its proximity to big industrial centers such as Zaporizhia or Dnipro, for example. So thanks to this, Mykolaiv has huge potential in logistic and especially in port logistic. That's why we expect to increase the turnover of the cargo up to 90 and more millions annually. That's why Mykolaiv is becoming a port city. And of course, it's not making life of our inhabitants comfortable, because it makes a huge damage to infrastructure and also a huge burden to the ecology of the city. That's one of the problems we have to solve before the war begins. But of course, now we face new challenges and new problems. We have huge significant decrease in the economic performance of the city enterprise, and it's evidenced by a reduction in income from personal income tax. In Ukraine, most of city budget is formed by personal income tax, and now we see decrease about 30%. Luckily, somehow this gap is covered with the income from our militias, because today Mykolaiv is the most militant city, and we have more than 30,000 our brave warriors in the city, and they are paying their taxes, salary taxes in Mykolaiv. Well, during the constant insidious shelling and bombardment by Russian troops, Mykolaiv suffered significant destruction, damage to municipal equipment, used the city authorities to meet the needs of city residents for the provision of municipal services. As of September 12, 2022, as a result of hostilities, more than 1,500 housing facilities have been damaged or destroyed, including more than 600 multi-story and more than 900 individual residential buildings. More than 45% of the city's social infrastructure is destroyed or damaged. And since this presentation was prepared, some other objects, such as our theater of drama, which it used to be named Russian drama, and in Soviet period, and now the word Russian was removed from the name of the theater. Employees of emergency, special and municipal services work around the clock to eliminate the consequences of hostilities and restore the city infrastructure under the martial law. We tried to estimate the damage of the hostilities of the shelling, but we cannot do this. On my personal, I see that for the moment it's more than 1.5 billion, and a lot of port infrastructure is destroyed, a lot of industrial objects are destroyed, housing, buildings, some of the municipal objects as well. Among the key needs of the city in the short term, we see that we have to provide our citizens with safe living conditions. Actually, our problems with the Kharkiv are quite similar, absolutely the same, and the proximity to the front line, to our enemies is the same, and we are under bombardment every day. That's why the first issue is a question of saving human life and health. Also, we have a huge problem with the drinking water and providing drinking water to our citizens, because before the invasion, we got the water from the river Dnieper by 70 kilometers of pipeline. Now the pipeline is destroyed by Russian troops, and we have to give the water to our inhabitants from the river of Pivdenny Bug. Unfortunately, it's salty water from Black Sea, and we are joking in Nikolaev that now we don't have to go to the seaside because we have seawater in our houses and we can take a shower with the seawater. Yeah, of course, this water is not suitable for consumption. That's why now we are installing around the city wells with those osmosis equipment, and somehow we try to supply fresh water to inhabitants. The development of alternative options for solving the issue of drinking water, including with the involvement of foreign specialists, also remains important. Another question is ensuring a stable heating season, because Nikolaev is one of cities with a central heating system, and in case of damages to our boiler station, half of the city would be not heated. That's the one problem. And the second problem is that a lot of damaged buildings have no windows and doors, and we cannot heat them because it makes no sense to heat the street. And somehow we have to remove those people from their houses and provide them with another accommodations. Also, another question is restoration of economic activities and enterprises. Starting from February 24th, economic situation in the city faced negative consequences. As a result of hostilities, 90 industrial facilities have been damaged. The number of large enterprises of the city, which provided the largest share of volume of sold industrial products in the city, have been suspended their activities. So we see huge increase of unemployment, and we have something to do something. Of course, it's hard to do something during the war, but we still have to plan what to do when the war ends. In long term, we also need a new master plan for the city, and we're glad we can follow the example of Kharkiv and Norman Foster Foundation. So now we are in deeper cooperation with one work team and UNECE as well. Thank you very much for your participation, and I'm sure that master plan will help us to solve a lot of issues. First of all, everybody in Ukraine is asking himself, what are we fighting for? We are fighting for future. So now we have to make a vision. We have to see what this future would be like. And then when we will win the war, we will build new city, new life for our inhabitants. So, however, due to the conduct of hostilities and significant destruction on the territory, It's already clear that the development, we meet new challenges in development, and now Mykolaiv community faces new problems, and we will have to solve in the future. I hope that the best urban planning, best practices, and your experience will help us to revival the city and make it the most prosperous city, maybe in Europe or the world, who knows. So just few key city challenges and issues we want to be solved also in the master plan. Yeah, the first is, of course, is safety, because now we need to think about shelters. We need to think. Actually, Mykolaiv was also very military, and we had a lot of troops situated. But you understand that until some period we were prepared to the war, not from the east, but from the west. And now the situation is absolutely different, and we have taken in consideration all these reasons to us. So we have to think about shelters, we have to think about moving our air defense system and so on. That's about the safety. We can see where the rockets and artillery are flying into the city, so we can see that the east and south are suffering more than other regions, so, and we have to take it into the consideration. Another is defining of the vision of the city. As I said, we used to be a shipbuilding yard, a shipbuilding city, and now we are a shipbuilding, and now we are a city of port, which is not very convenient, not very comfort for the inhabitants. So we supposed to search for new vision and for new goals for our city. It's necessary to develop a specific vision for like 5, 10, 20, and probably 50 years. Also restoration of critical infrastructure, water supply system, sewage, power grids, gas supply, roads, railway connection, it's all is damaged and partially destroyed, so we have to think how to restore it. Reconstruction of social infrastructure. For the moment, we have more than 45% of social infrastructure damaged or totally ruined. Our schools, our kindergartens, our sport institution, cultural institution, theaters as well. About 17 healthcare institutions were also damaged or destroyed. So we have to also to think how to rebuild, restore it, or it would be better to totally demolish it and then build new one, which will meet new challenges and will be more efficient for our inhabitants. Also providing with the housing for citizens and internally displaced persons. As I said, we have more than 600 blocks of flat damaged and destroyed, and more than 900 individual houses partially destroyed or damaged. So somehow we have to provide those people with housing and with the comfort conditions of life. Another question is return on the human resources. For the moment, more than a half of inhabitants have fled from the war to safer cities in the western Ukraine and also to abroad. Somehow we have to return those human resources. We have to find the goal for them to stay in Mykolaiv again and to restore the city. Pity, for the moment, 138 civilians have been killed during the war and 685 citizens have been injured. So we are still losing our people in this senseless war, and we don't know how it's going to end at the end. Mobility, yes. During the war, a lot of gas storing and diesel storing was ruined by Russian troops, and we face a huge shortage, for example, of the fuel. And the electrical transport was the only way to move around the city. So it's another issue, and it shows that we have to develop it not only because of the ecological issues, but also because somehow it can be the only way to have mobility through the city. What else? Well, that's probably the short short presentation of the city and city news of the moment. And now I would like to represent to your attention a short film just to see how Nikolaev looked like before the war and how it looks now, and to see destroying buildings and demolitions of the city. Should I press something here to start the presentation? Thank you. Thank you. If you have any questions, or yeah.
Thank you, Dmitro. It's very touching.
I just want to add a few words more. Actually, in city council, to get the information quick, we use this internet radio. And when I was coming here, I was on the radio and I heard that another shell attack took place today and some other houses were destroyed just an hour ago. And you know, well, probably each of us have seen some apocalyptical movies like Resident of Evil with Mila Jovovich, yeah? By the way, she's she comes from Ukraine. She was born in Kiev. And I have this, every day I have this strong feeling that one nation was infected with some kind of virus, or I don't know, poisoned with some toxic thing, you know. And I hope that according to our joint efforts of the world community, someday this cure will be found and apply it to them, yeah? And then we will have, and then this situation will never happen again in the world, not just in Europe, but everywhere. And then I will have a possibility to welcome each of you, everybody of you, in a peaceful, free, prosperous Ukrainian city of Mykolaiv. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Unfortunately, scientists have found ways and how to address viruses, and vaccines, how to cure and to prevent viruses, but not the vaccine, how to cure madness of wars. Now I give the floor to Ms. Anna Pais, Program Manager of OneWorks.
Madam Chair, delegations, distinguished and honored guests, I would like to take the few minutes of my intervention today in order to describe to all of you the process that we're starting to undertake on our way to building together Mykolaiv's vision towards the future city master plan. So as a general input, we established direct contact with the mayor of the city, Alexander Senkevich, on the 15th of August of 2022. No time was spent on general comments, but a very critical situation was described to all of us since the beginning. As Dimitri just mentioned in his intervention, Mykolaiv has been holding the front due to its proximity to the Kherson territory. And that means that it has been bombarded up to date in August, all but 22 non-consecutive days since the beginning of the year. Just to give you an idea of the proximity and what that means, when a missile is launched from Kherson, it takes 6 minutes to strike the center of Mykolaiv. Thankfully, though, there was good news within this critical crisis situation. Mykolaiv had invested in the data. A lot has been talked about throughout this summit on the importance of data, and Alexander had understood that before the conflict struck his city. So in 2019, he put together a group of his technicians and invested in building and elaborating a very, very rich GIS database. From the image behind me, we can see the urban settlement and its land use distribution before the conflict began. As architects, engineers, and urban planners, this represented to us a first ray of hope. It represented to us a gold mine to start analyzing and understanding the pre-conflict condition of the city. And thus we began to separate the different layers within our core team in the studio in Milan, analyzing road network, public transportation, industrial land settlements, landscape services, and housing. I will not dive into the details of it since the data obviously is sensible, but we have looked into land occupation, the main elements that were composing these different layers and their locations, and most of all, how they work together within each other, as we know as urban planners and architects that the symbiosis between them is key. But what is happening in Mykolaiv today? Part of Dimitro's intervention next to me set a lot of a clear image of what is going on in the city. Mykolaiv has lost 50% of its population, mostly the active and young population that has had the chance to flee the city. It has lost over 1,500 housing units within its core center and many more within the outskirts of the city. It has lost almost 45% of its services institutions and almost 44% of its infrastructure. It's important to also highlight the fact that these were the numbers until September 30th of 2022. As Dimitri stressed, we are currently under stress and humongous shelling that is increasing these numbers as we sit down here and speak. But now I urge you to step back and remember that the numbers are representing real life stories and need of a civilian population that is currently at the war front. So let's take a minute here to understand what are the immediate needs that the city is facing. As I was mentioning before, shelling is happening still every single day, and as it strikes, it takes away everything at a 200-meter range distance. So sheltering at this point is critical, especially as we have seen that in the last weeks, transportation infrastructure, stops, and stations have become targets. So civilians that are commuting to and from their working stations are being hit hardly the most regarding this. Housing. Insulation is an immediate need. The winter is approaching very fast, and from the information that we've received, part of the population of Mykolaiv that has been displaced has actually stayed floating in the surrounding areas of the city. Summer is allowing them to take cover now, but as winter starts, we need to be ready and insulate the buildings that have not been hit by missiles so that we may welcome home the citizens that will seek refuges as the temperatures lower. Infrastructure. Drinkable water is an immediate need, as Dimitra was mentioning. Pipelines have been hit hard. Water transformation and treatment plants have been hit hard as sensible targets. As of now, the population is dependent on very few wells that are located in the center of the city, but once again, as we approach the winter, it will be harder for them to be queuing outside, and some of these points might be frozen. Last but not least, infrastructure. We have mid and long-term needs that the master plan will need to respond to regarding transportation infrastructure that, as I was mentioning before, is currently being hit, as well as sanitary facilities, primary schools, and universities that we were able to see from the video that Dimitra just showed to us. Now I would like to take a time, though, to also say that as we have civilians in the front line and we're placing people at the front and center of the needs that we need to meet today, it is also people that are behind the lines throughout this collaboration process, as we believe that the recipe to success needs to be written by many. So I would like to introduce to you the organizations and the people behind this process. We have been involving the civil society in our way to empowering the communities. And we're doing this through an initial questionnaire that has been launched in order to better understand the current conditions. This is a first consultation process that we hope that together with the master planning tools bring forward into empowering our communities to become a part of the city's reconstruction. We're involving political leaders and local experts by having weekly calls with all of them on our way to capacity building. We're sharing with them our knowledges on general and international guidelines that can be implemented in their city so that they have the tools to continue rebuilding their city tomorrow. Finally, involving partners led by One Works team. Over here, I would like to mention Politecnico di Milano and Luke University. We have reached out to the academia that was eager to be able to put all of their research resources into real, tangible change. We have reached out to Municipia Engineering Group, private, large engineering Italian group that had the willingness to answer this call and provide for us their technical expertise. We have reached out to GIS Devio, a GIS data management company that we are talking with in order to be able to establish a shared database online so that we may design the future of the city together with their local experts and civic leaders. I would like to take a moment here to say that historically, we were aware from many decades ago about the fact that technology has allowed us to start and put wars and conflicts from afar. We have taken much long time to realize that technological tools, willingness, and collaboration today are also going to allow us, if we use them in a different way, to be able to reconstruct from afar. So what we're witnessing right now is an unprecedented and unique collaboration process, and so we are calling out to all of you to become part of this task force and part of this process as we carry it forward. We stepped back when we were talking to our local experts from their technical expertise from a moment and did an exercise with them that was incredibly powerful for both themselves and our core team in Milan. we asked them, take a minute and let us see the future of your city through your eyes. And many different phrases came up that described many different things that were not linked to technical parameters. It gave them the opportunity to think of and to look forward to a brighter future. Norman Foster has been famously quoted by saying that the architect has no power. And while this might be true in political settings, we believe that we do have the responsibility, though, to lead these kind of processes in collaboration with different professionals and the civic society in order to be able to turn phrases such as "a city for my children" into tangible future for Mykolaiv through a sustainable planning tool that we are working today to put together. So, taking into consideration all of the elements that were given to us by the previous partners involved and our Ukrainian friends, we put together a list of the city needs that you see here highlighted in their main silos: infrastructure, services, housing, industries and job provision, city planning, and greenery. All of these are going to contribute to the major goals. They are the challenges that the master plan needs to respond to in order to be able to welcome the Ukrainian population home and attract further new population, which will result in being able to build an economic legacy for the city of Mykolaiv. Also, as professionals that are leading this process with our Ukrainian partners and as part of our capacity building approach, our team in Milano dove into research. We have the ability to innovate through the technological tools and the collaboration, but we also have the ability to look back into the past and search for success stories around the world and apply their lessons learned. Our team has done this in the core elements of master planning, city ports, and housing. I bring forth over here two of the examples of many that we've studied within the studio, and they refer to Dresden and Detroit that have undergone both war and conflict conditions in the case of Dresden, and in the case of Detroit, a large rebuilding due to the economic problems that it has faced. And from then, we learned very valuable lessons that we shared with our Ukrainian community, engaging the local communities, scaling back to the tax base, diversifying investment, revitalizing the industries, building in flexibility, because this is not a direct line. The master plan needs to be flexible in order to respond to changes that may happen in the future, moderating targets, aligning market expectations in order to be economically successful, building a partnership, and finally, last but not least, leaving no one behind. The population that we will receive back into our cities has gone tremendous, traumatic changes, and so we need to create equal opportunities for everyone throughout the master plan basis. When it comes to looking at poor cities, Mykolaiv, as Dimitro was correctly mentioning, is very strong for what regards industrial waterfront and shipbuilding. So in this case, we looked at incentivizing the economy while rebuilding a more livable city through strategies that allowed for all citizens and sectors to live and use the city's ports. Once again, here we looked around the world for the success stories that could be brought over to Mykolaiv, and our team learned and shared with our Ukrainian friends the lessons from Rotterdam, from what regards reusing the old harbor. From Hamburg, we learned mixed use and flood control strategies that could be applied to the city. From Baltimore, we've learned the overlap of the urban layers that allow for democratic accessibility to the waterfront areas. From Le Havre, we learned about educational centers that could be installed in the ports in order to keep on transmitting this legacy over to the future generations. And finally, from Boston, we learned activation programs through the insertion of piers and different layers in their waterfronts. Finally, last but not least, housing. Revitalizing the existing housing provision. Do we need to build back from scratch, or can we be also sustainable in our strategies? This is through strategies that raise comfort, safety, and that make our urban fabric more sustainable. Also, I would like to take a moment here to say that we've had the support and collaboration of some of the UN agencies that have encouraged the learning process by setting thematic workshops that have shared plenty of knowledge with our core team, and we are highly appreciative of this effort that has been put down by UNECE and the other UN agencies. Summarizing on our lessons learned on this topic, from France, we learned communal space renovation and its importance. From the Netherlands, we learned freeing the ground floor for communal activities and how that can enhance community. From UK, we've learned about retrofitting and insulation that can be installed on our remaining housing stock. From Slovakia, we learned about interior replanning in order to enhance the quality of the internal spaces within the housing stock. From the Netherlands, once again, we learned about increasing density by adding floors. From France, we learned about embracing the living units and enlarging their spaces. And finally, from Spain and the United States, we learned the importance of transit-oriented developments in order to make our communities much more sustainable. And with this, I introduce what we believe can be the future vision for Mykolaiv. Our main pillars are sustainable mobility, and this is about granting democratic accessibility to the territory, linking Mykolaiv through a hierarchized, clean transportation network. Governance, and this is about learning together, so a capacity building approach. We are learning a lot back in our core team from their territory, and at the same time we are transmitting all of our international expertise. Community engagement, cooperation is the key to building back better. We need to include the communities to have their consensus and their help when it comes to reconstructing Mykolaiv. Green networks, this is about enhancing wellness through the integration of parks and green links. Affordable housing is about ensuring high quality housing provision for all of us that we're going to welcome back. And industrial development and innovation, which is about building an economic legacy for the city that might make all of the other pillars sustainable. These have been declined into actions. So over here, I will not go through all of this, but I would like to mention some key elements within our diverse pillars. For the industrial development and innovation, over here, we're talking about stimulating local symbiosis through business park networks in order to relaunch Mykolaiv economy. We welcome investments in the city. At the same time, though, we want to guarantee economic balance of the city by promoting large and small businesses together. Affordable housing. This is about supporting a network of new and existing neighborhoods typologies. And this refers to utilizing the existing housing stock. So focusing on measures that use the vacant stock to renew urban and rural areas while we also integrate with new neighborhoods. Green networks. This is a lot about promoting landscape as green infrastructure through the introduction of soft mobility that may allow us to then lower emissions, overall emissions in the city. Encourage a harmonious urban landscape. So this is about the introduction of green belts and corridors throughout the city's core that may also allow us to, for example, lower the temperature that is generated by the heat islands within the city center. Sustainable mobility. This is about, once again, granting democratic accessibility to the territory by reducing dependency of private modes in the forth of sustainable choices. Leveraging transport to promote sustainable development, as I was mentioning before. Last but not least, governance, agency capacity building through the collaborative approach that we are undertaking, creating a common and long-term vision that is shared by government agencies, by the civic society, and by civic leaders. This is key because once the conflict is finished and we are able to reconstruct, we will be successful if we have a clear path to follow ahead. Finally, community engagement. Embed community engagement practices within the planning framework. Communities are highly resilient, and this means that today they are in stress, and so we can only consult them, but tomorrow we will be able to empower them. finally guide the communities and stakeholders in incremental participatory process, as I was saying before, so that they are able to be empowered of tomorrow. Last, I would like to make two overall comments regarding this slide. One is the fact that you see over here to the side two elements, hardware and software. Not everything is tangible. There are some elements as the governance and the community engagement that we cannot touch with our hands, but we are aware of the fact that if we don't have all of these elements together, we may not succeed in providing a successful hardware. And then the second comment that I want to make regarding this is that we are bringing forth an approach that is looking at an overall long-term vision through these actions that will then also, on the later stages of this development, be declined into our pilot projects so that change can be made real in the midterm while the master plan is coming together. Finally, on my last slide, I would like to leave with a message of hope. I believe that our first goal is already being felt by our Ukrainian friends and partners, and that is that this collaborative approach is giving them a message of hope, is letting them know that we are not alone, while we are working very strongly together to obtain our long-term range goals, which are to see Mykolaiv in the future as a city of innovative employment districts, as a city that connects its people to opportunities, as a green city where landscapes contribute to wellness, as a city of diverse, attractive neighborhoods. So we're here building the future together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna, for this sharing with us the work that you are doing there. And again, what is very important in your presentation is also the partnership and the solidarity of different institutions and organizations. We cannot undo what is done. We cannot undo the consequences of the war, but we can use it, the opportunity to build back better and to include everyone in the new developments. So thank you very much for all the presentation and the information that you shared with us. Is very useful for us all, not only to understand what is going on in Ukraine, not only to see the sad side of the war and the distractions, but also the whole and the big energy that is put together to rebuild it immediately after the war is finished. And I wish that this war ends as soon as possible. Thank you very much again.
Thank you.
We end up here with this item of the agenda, and I ask the Secretariat to put on the screen the short decision on that we take note of the activities and advices accordingly. Thank you again. And see you at 3 o'clock. But before that, there is a side event at 12:30 now.
No, 34.
Sorry?
12:30.
12:30 to 2:30.
Yeah, it's 12, we're going to make it 12:40. 12:40.
12:40, okay, 12:40, a side event on impact of the energy crisis on housing, real estate management, and urban development, which is a hybrid format and is organized by REM in this location. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, and see you in the side event or in the afternoon at 3 o'clock here to continue with the agenda.